Shalom.
Shalom.
We are doing another podcast.
Holly, it's been a while.
It's been a good while. We've been busy. What have we been up to?
Well, we moved out of our moldy bus and we're in northern Wisconsin now.
Where it's nice and cool for the summers.
Yeah, we actually had a day a couple of days ago that was 61 degrees. That's amazing.
And I think we looked in Florida and it was like 93.
Yeah.
So 30-degree difference. We've been Lily hasn't been doing much social media stuff for a while. Why is that?
Well, I made an update post recently and kind of just saying that, we've been slandered a lot and have faced a lot of persecution, and I've really just felt led to kind of withdraw to the Father and really pray about everything and seek his heart and ask for him to show me his perspective on the whole thing and how he views us, and if there's anything that we need to change or how we should handle the situation, and kind of just be silent and, spend time with him, make sure that our hearts are right, because, that's what we're going to be talking about today is the dangers of slander and how much it can hurt people and the damage that it can cause. And when that happens to us or anybody, it's super painful. It can completely destroy. We've seen it destroy people's faith.
Yeah.
We've seen them fall away completely. And I recognized the amount of pain I had and just what we were going through. And we were already going through so much with losing our home and everything. And I was like, I can't handle this. I just need to, focus on our family and what we're going through and praying and seeking the Father first.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, Lily does almost all of our social media stuff. We don't have enough time for both of us to be on there. So she just does most of that stuff, and I just do a lot of other things. We kind of divide our responsibilities and stick to our own things. So, so yeah, that's where we've kind of been absent for a while. But what we've been up to lately, when we moved out of our bus, we moved into, we have a friend who was widowed right around the same time that we moved into our bus. And she's now taking care of her mom, who's a lot older and needs some help and just has some health problems. And so she's actually down in Florida right now and is taking care of her mom. And her house sat empty for like eight months, I think. Yeah, about 8 months. And so it sat empty over the winter, and she's needed down by her mom so much so that she doesn't know if or when she'll be able to come back home. So it was a huge blessing to us that she opened up her home to us to be able to move into temporarily while we build another bus. And it's a huge blessing for us for that situation, but it's also a huge blessing for her because her house isn't sitting empty anymore. There's somebody here taking care of it, maintaining it. The yard isn't just turning into the forest, and like the inside isn't just unmanaged to where if there's a small leak that comes up or something, and it would just be leaking for years.
Yeah, houses aren't meant to not be lived in.
Yeah,
that's why people have full-time jobs as house sitting. But I mean, it's just a blessing for us to even be here, especially with our babies. And it's hard to live in someone else's house, but we're blessed. We got a roof over our head and food in our bellies, but that's what we've been up to.
Yeah, and we've just been maintaining her property, and she's got most of it's wooded, so we've been clearing out a bunch of dead trees and trees that are what they call widow makers, where a tree falls into another tree and it's stuck, and it's a lot harder to get.
Suspended in the air, waiting to fall on someone. That's why it's called a widow maker, because it can
it's
make
also
widows.
Really dangerous to cut down, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can think you know what you're doing, then it falls on you, and then you die, and that's how it's also a widow maker. So,
but thankfully, Alex is very skilled and can do it no problem.
Yeah, you just got to do it safely, and even then, accidents can still happen. So, make sure you pray. But we've been doing that, and then we just got a lot of good work, or good bit of work to maintain this. It's actually an old log cabin that they refinished the whole inside on and did a lot of cool additions to, but it just still constantly log cabins need work. So we were able to maintain her house and her property and everything here. And
we're looking at next week actually restaining and resealing, chinking her entire outside of her cabin, because if it was left for much longer, it would just start to decay and rot. In some spots it already is.
Yeah, all the logs are bare wood, and it looks like you're supposed to restain a log cabin every 3 to 5 years. and it looks like it's been at least 10 years since anything was done to it. So it's definitely in need of some help. So
Yeah, it seems like the Father brought us here in perfect timing, so we're trying to be content, and we're recognizing now that we're in a season of healing, especially trying to heal our son that has symptoms of what they call autism, and so we're
and
learning a lot. And
we also have a lot of our own gut health problems, and so we're just trying to heal our own bodies and just become healthy for probably the first time in our entire life.
yeah, like actually healthy.
Yeah, been doing like a lot of raw milk and coconut, or no, not coconut, but milk kefir and fermented like foods like fermented pickles, and just taking a lot of good quality like supplements that can help us to correct our gut health and
Some
stuff, and
probiotics, and
probiotics and
I'm doing
different mushrooms.
prenatals now because right now I'm 16 weeks pregnant, so we'll probably end up having our fourth baby here. And yeah, well, let's get into it.
Yeah, so the main topic we're going to be trying to talk about today and shed some light on is like the dangers and the consequences of slandering other people. This is one thing that we've seen in the time that we've been Torah observant, or just keeping all the commandments that are found in the Bible, is that the group of people that naturally gathers together with this common goal is just riddled with slander, and is really common for like exposing other people. And like, while exposing other people does have a time and a place, I think that slander and exposing often go hand in hand, and usually most people that do that are jumping the gun. They're not following the right steps, and it really causes a lot of damage.
And sometimes, well, most of the time with that, the fruits of that is that's their entire ministry then.
Yeah.
Like that's all they do. That's like their faith and what they're focusing on. And, I think if we're just focused on others so much, we're not doing much in our own walks.
Yeah.
We should be so busy just trying to seek the kingdom and the Father, and we don't even have time for that. That's another reason that we've just been silent through it all, because for one, we don't even have time because we're so busy.
Yeah.
I'll actually pull up my Facebook profile, and I'll read something to you quick. It's pinned to the top of my profile because it's been so important in our life, and it's going to stay there probably for the rest of my life until Yahushua returns. It says, "Let people be wrong about you or a situation, while keeping your shalom and remaining focused on Yahuwah and doing his work. You will always be misunderstood by someone. If we stopped our work to defend ourselves to all of the doubters and slanderers, we would never get anything done. The enemy wants you to question your worth, but when you get your worth from Yahuwah and not man's opinion, you will have the victory in all circumstances." Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. That's something that it took us a little while to learn, is that you don't have to, especially when you're slandered and it's not true. Or we talked about this a bit the other day. I don't think if someone says something about you that is true, it's not slander, right? Like slander, we thought about it, and I think slander is mainly if someone says something about you that's not true, right?
Yeah, it's mainly, but there are some
instances.
Instances in Proverbs that it talks about. Even when I think I wrote some verses down that might say that to share tonight. But even if we see a brother or sister sinning, we should try. Love is concealing their transgression and taking it to the Father and praying for them. And love covers transgression. It doesn't expose it at every opportunity and try to like jump on it, because we've seen people like just wait for people to fall, and then they're like happy about it, like rejoicing, like, oh, look at this, look at them. It's like, you don't know how damaging that is to people's faith, like especially with people that fall short. We know that we fall short. I would hope that a brother or sister would come to us in love, because that's the main thing that we've seen. Anyone that is slandering us, they haven't even came to us once. Most of the people don't even know us personally. They hear one thing and they run with it. And that's one of the biggest dangers of slander. If you aren't 100% sure that what is being told to you is 100% truth, you should never ever speak on it.
It shouldn't keep going. It should, that is kind of the same thing as gossip. If you hear something else and then you go and say something else about it without verifying the facts, Like, we've seen so many people that hear something and then they run with it and they don't test it or they don't fact check it. And it gets a lot of people into trouble, especially when you start talking about tearing someone else down or accusing somebody else of something without even knowing that person, without asking them if it's even in any way true. Like Lily said, just about everybody that's made posts, like exposing us or saying that we've done things wrong. We know a lot of those people, but they don't reach out to us and say, "Hey, why are you guys doing this? Why did you make this decision?"
Or is
I
this
feel like,
true?
yeah,
Or what's
I
your
feel,
perspective?
yeah, like I feel like you were way in the wrong when you did this. We didn't have any communication with any of those people. They didn't reach out to us. They didn't say, "Hey, how can we fix this thing that you did that I think is wrong? How can we make this situation right?" There was just a post or something that was made, like we talked about slandering. So it was just a slanderous post that was made, and the intent of all that is just to tear people down. It's
Yeah.
never to, and it's masked or like shielded underneath like a let's stop this bad behavior from this group of people by exposing it. But really, like almost all the time, the facts aren't true. So it's not like it's maybe from a good intent, but the communication isn't there
Yeah.
on either side.
And we've followed and been friends with quite a few ministries. And we've seen a lot. I mean, we've been Torah observant for almost a decade. And we've seen a lot of people come against other ministries. And they're like, oh, did you hear about this and this? I don't like these people because of this and this. And it's like we've been in community with these other ministries and we're like lived with them, like actually like live with them and see them every day. And like we're hearing slander firsthand and we're like, you know what, that's actually what you're saying is actually not true. I know that you weren't there because we were there in that instance, and that's not true at all. Where did you hear this? Or we don't even usually ask that. We're just like, shut it down, like that's not true. And if you don't know what you're saying is true, why are you speaking on it? Like you have to have the fear of Yahuwah when you're talking about other people, especially brothers and sisters, because it's damaging. It really is really damaging.
Yeah. And it seems like I said a minute ago, it's like slander is almost always accompanied by lying and gossiping and tearing other people down. And it's really never, I don't know any situation where slander or gossip or tearing somebody else down is ever beneficial.
Yeah.
And like I said in the beginning,
And it's never done correctly. Yahuwah's a man of order.
Yeah. Like exposing people does have a time and a place and a right way to go about it,
And it's usually never that way.
And that's usually not what we see from people when they do go ahead and expose people. They usually always have the wrong facts. They heard it from somebody else and they're repeating it. And it's usually never, ever, like there's no communication. I feel like if there could be communication, a lot of times things could get cleared up unless someone has just got their own thoughts and it doesn't matter what you say and they're out to slander you and tear you down, then it doesn't matter what communication happens because that's what their intent is.
Yeah, we gotta have discernment. Like if you have someone that talks bad about you, sometimes there's nothing you can do and you gotta just surrender it to the Father. You can just tell immediately with discernment and the Ruach, the set apart spirit, that it's not going to be beneficial. You're just going to be adding flame to the fire, adding fuel to the fire. That's one thing that we recognized early on with the people that have been slandering us recently. Like, if we say anything here, we can tell it's going to be twisted because even the facts are being twisted, the basics. So if we do anything, we might as well just pray and take it to the Father. And when people slander you, just pray for the slanderers. Pray for those people because, I'm sure a lot of them think that they're doing a good thing. A lot of them are probably just deceived and they don't understand the weight of what they're doing, or they need prayer, they need his intervention. And we've seen posts get taken down after they're made where Yahuwah convicts them. We've had people apologize to us and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I really should have talked to you guys, I should have asked you questions. I've especially like if we make posts about calling out different sins, not like people directly at all, but calling out different sins, it really makes people upset.
Yeah.
And then they'll
Like they
go,
call it like kicking the beehive.
yeah. And then they'll get really upset at you personally, the messenger. But then, and they might slander you, but then they might come back. I've had some of my best friends do that now, or not, or they did that in the beginning, and then later on in life, they're my best friends.
Yeah. I think also, like you said, and I said it before, is usually that slander comes from or is shielded by like, oh, we need to stop this since we're trying to do something good. But that's like slander more often than not comes from a position of hurt.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of people that have slandered us have been hurt by something that we said or did and didn't ask for clarification, didn't try and understand anything anymore, or just, they were hurt for whatever reason, and then they added, like they sit with that hurt, and then it gets magnified, and then they start to twist the facts in their own head and essentially just lie to themselves to the point where they make up something, or they view it through a different way, and they kind of change the facts a little bit, and then as time goes on, it just solidifies in your head, and then before you know it, the thoughts that you've had become facts, and then all of a sudden the past is not shaped by what actually happened. It's just based off of your own hurt and feelings that you've stirred up, and now this is reality now.
We've seen that even with pretty much anything. Like if you let things fester in your brain, and you're not patient and taking time to actually pray and seek Yahuwah and say, well, it's your will in this situation. If you dwell on things, they can get magnified in your brain.
Yeah, well, we've seen that with our parents. We've seen that with some of our closest friends that we've ever had in the Torah community, where as time goes on, and then all of a sudden they're saying things that are facts that never happened. Yeah. And would have never imagined to have happened, but it's just because they were coming from a place of hurt, and then they magnify those, like Lily said, let those things that they were hurt by fester, and then everything gets worse in your head.
Yeah, and that's what the enemy does. He's called the accuser for a reason. We got to be careful that we're not allowing him to work through our lives, and that we're showing grace and mercy and love and kindness and forgiveness and all those things. And a lot of you, I'm sure, have seen that with your own relatives. Once you come into the Torah, all of a sudden you realize half your relatives are talking behind your back, saying things that never even happened, things that aren't even true. It's just sad. I think all of us have dealt with slander at some point, so we should try to give grace to each other.
Yeah. Especially like growing up in, like, if you grew up in a regular school, probably guaranteed it was about everybody. At some point, somebody said something that wasn't true about them.
And we can see the effects of that. I was bullied a lot in school. One reason I really hated it, probably not one of the main reasons though, because school is just indoctrination camp, prison. But there's times that I actually didn't even want to go. And I mean, we've seen people commit, not anyone personally that I know of that was the main reason, but we hear stories of it all the time, people committing suicide. It's so painful. As much as we want to rely on Yahuwah alone, a lot of us rely on each other, which is how it's supposed to be. Scripture says that we're a body for a reason. We're supposed to work together. A body isn't just a head. A body isn't just an arm. It's not one finger. It's everything. And we need to work together and have unity. And that's, like Scripture says, slander destroys that. That'll get me into a verse that I wrote down. See if I can find it. Proverbs 16:28. A dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends.
We've seen that come true in our own life. And one thing, like with slander, is that, like Lily said, sometimes people will commit suicide if people lie to them, and they don't see any other, everybody's against them. They don't see another way to do anything, and that's one option. And then some people, like, it's very, very difficult to not, well, at least for me it is, to, when someone just completely lies about you and says things that aren't true, gets, you can easily get really upset. And then it's like, go set, it's almost like, if you think about it as a fight, if somebody punches you, it's hard not to punch them back, because you need to or like especially if somebody's lying about you, you want to show that like, hey, I'm in the right here. None of this is true. It's not true at all. So there's more often than not what you see is somebody will be slandered and then they retaliate back, and then that's not good fruits back because they, a lot of times just turn around and slander the other person.
It's out of anger and
Yeah.
bitterness and
Yep.
hurt, and
Yeah.
can't be living out of that.
Yeah. So what we chose to do wasn't to kill ourselves or like to get super angry and retaliate back and attack the people that said, lies and things about us, but we just chose to stay silent and to let Yahuwah fight our battles. And we learned that a long, long time ago, through a very painful situation. But it's so much better to just not give an answer to people that are not looking for an answer, because so many times when people are like, well, what do you have to say? Defend yourself. That's not it starts off on the wrong foot. And it's not like, what's your side of the story? Because every single story has a different side to it. And you can see something from an outside view, or like I grew up in my family, and my not my parents, but my parents' siblings were all divided. And I grew up with one side of a story my entire life. And based off of that story, I viewed my other family that I never really got to know a certain way because of the story that I was heard. And it was only until after I had moved out, started living with Lily, that we got married, and then Lily said, well, I wonder what the other side of the story is. And I was just like, I never have had that thought. It'd be cool to find out. And so I reached out to my other side of the family, and their story was a lot different than I had ever heard. And pretty much the story I had heard my whole life was mostly not true. And so it's
actually the opposite.
Yeah, and I learned through that experience alone, really early on in our like walk of keeping the commandments, that the other side of the story is the most valuable thing you can get.
Vital, and that there's a spot in scripture where an adulteress is taken before the people, or I think the Pharisees bring her in. She's like, they say, we need to stone her according to the Torah.
Yeah.
And in Torah, it says there needs to be the man there. And that's one thing that people say, that Yahusha, our Messiah, wrote in the sand, because it said he bent over and wrote in the sand, but it doesn't say what. And some people say it says, where is the man?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to keep Torah, you need to have the other person there. Because if you're going to
kill someone
and also interrogate people or say they're guilty, you should probably hear it out and have all the people there talk about it, seek to understand. But we didn't see that fruit with the Pharisees. They were not keeping the law. They thought they were. They thought they were keeping the Sabbath and the feasts, and same thing that we see in the Torah community. But where's the love? Where's the unity? Where's the trying to, intercede for each other to the Father and just pray for each other and be like, what do you need? How can I help you in your walk? You're struggling. If you are asking for money in some way, and I think you're not, is there any way that I can help you?
Yeah, or like with that story, going back to the Old Testament version of that story, the book of Susanna, where it's a story of Daniel when he's younger, that he sought out the other side of the story. That's such a rare thing to see. You should
go into it more, because I do have that written down.
Yeah, there's such a rare thing to see today. Just like it was only for the first time in my entire life I was told a story until Lily said, hey, we should see what the other side of the story is. I had never once thought about getting the other side of the story, ever. I just heard what I heard, and I took it for what it was.
Accepted
and
I
never challenged it. I never questioned it. I never reached out to get the other side of the story. And that experience was so shocking and like life-changing that anytime I hear anything, and especially with someone slandering, like if somebody says, don't ever listen to this ministry, they're horrible, they're wicked, don't talk to them, don't have anything to do with them. If I ever hear somebody say that, the first thing I do is reach out to that ministry and say, hey, what, how are you doing? Let's get to know you. Because so almost every time I've ever done that, whatever was said about someone is completely wrong.
Yeah, we've made some of our best friends that way. Yeah. And honestly, the people that are slandering mostly, they don't bear very much fruit, and the people that are being slandered are bearing the most fruit. And really, that's why they're facing so much opposition, because the enemy comes and infiltrates and puts hatred and bitterness and envy and all these things into people's hearts. And then, we at times cannot realize it. I've had it in my own walk. I've had a lot of bitterness, and then I check myself and I'm like, oh, why am I angry?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be this. This is from the enemy. I need to pray.
Yeah.
But that gets us into why Alex brought up the book of Susanna, because he heard so many things from his family members, and it's like, oh, I can trust these people. They know what they're talking about. They lived it. They experienced it, and you just take it as fact. And the same thing in the book of Susanna. Susanna was brought to the main elders. Everyone trusted these elders. They were like the top dogs in the Torah community type thing at that time. They're like, okay, yeah, they're the elders. They know what they're talking about. We just trust what they say.
Yeah, and so the backstory of that is that these two elders, had lusted after this woman who was married, and they both told each other, and they conceived to lay with her when she was alone. And so they, created a scenario where she would be alone, and then they came and they said, if you don't do what we say, then we're gonna testify against you that you were with another man. And so this whole thing conspires. She cries out, like it says in the Torah to do, and the maids come running,
cries out for help.
Yep, and the maids come running, and the priests at the time, or the elders, they bear false witness against her, and the whole thing goes to a big trial, and they're about to. So again, just like in the time with Yahusha, she's the only one there. They claim that she was caught in adultery, but they don't have the man there. They said that he was stronger than they were, and he fled away, and they don't know who he was. But so everybody accepts this story at face value, like Lily said, because these people are trusted elders. Nobody questions the story. But Daniel knows that this lady is righteous, and so he stands up when nobody else
by
did.
The Spirit.
Yeah, and so she's about to be killed, and he stands up when nobody else did, and he said, "Let's put this to the test. Let's see." He doesn't get the other side of the story from her, but the whole story is presented in a false way. But he does exactly what I said. He goes and he talks to the people. So he separates the two elders. He asks them for some details about the story.
Yeah, he asked them what tree was it under.
Yeah.
Each of them, he said to the one elder, what tree was it under?
The first one said it was a holm tree.
Yeah, and then he went to the other elder and asked him what tree was it under.
It was a mastic tree, and so
it's a lie.
Yeah, they didn't get all the fine details because it's just a made up story. So he showed, just based off of a quick, 2-second thing, like these people are both they don't have the same story. And then it's not even the same tree.
Yeah, and then I think the elders were killed after that instead.
Yeah, because that's what the Torah is. If you maliciously intend to do something against your neighbor wrongfully,
yeah, they were ready to rape and then kill her.
Yeah, but you get the punishment that you said that your neighbor should get. That's what it is in the Torah.
So we've seen these problems since the beginning. They're all the way back in Scripture. Nothing is new under the sun. Yeah. And where does that come from? It comes from lust, covetousness, envy. And a lot of times it's like their ego was hurt. They wanted to sleep with her. She said no. She cried out against these self-proclaimed prideful elders. Or not even self-proclaimed. They were, probably whatever it's called. Voted in or something. Elders, selected. Yeah. And that's where a lot of it comes from, and we've seen that in our own walk.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people slandering us, they asked us on the road to do some work for them or something, and we, for whatever reason, said no. You want to go into detail about the one camper?
Yeah, so we had someone reach out to us.
And okay, backstory. The only reason we're saying this is not to defend ourselves in any way, because I'm sure there's people listening that have heard the other side, have seen the slander. We, at this point, have no desire to defend ourselves in any way. We've been silent for months. The only reason we're even sharing this is to show that there are two perspectives. You can hear something and it's not true, and then you hear the other perspective and it's completely different.
Yeah.
You got to hear two sides of the story before you even make a judgment.
Yeah. So I'll present the side of the story for this situation from that perspective, from the way that it was exposed and talked about, is that there's a camper that needed a roof repair in the community that we were living in at the time. And the person reached out to me and said, hey, and I think at this point we weren't
living there.
We weren't there. We were actually somewhere else.
We were on the road.
Yeah, we were on the road.
Doing ministry work.
But so this person had reached out because they knew that I was competent in construction work, and they said, hey, I've got this camper that needs a roof repair. Are you able to help with that? And I said, well, send me some pictures and details and I'll take a look at it. And I don't remember what had happened to this camper. I think it had ended up like getting stuck somewhere or something, and like underneath something. and it had gotten pulled apart essentially. And so on the tops of the two sidewalls and the roof, it was literally torn apart, like not in half, but it was like opened up like you'd grab a loaf of bread and just rip the
Yeah.
top open is essentially what happened. And I looked at the pictures pretty closely, and I mean, while that could be fixed, you could just grab a piece of metal from the store and just screw it down. It's not it's not that simple. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just slap a band-aid on something and it actually, for the most part, always creates more problems down the road. And just the structural integrity of the whole thing, the boards in the
There's
ceiling
water
were broken,
damage.
it had water damage, and so it's all very, very questionable. And so for that, all those reasons, I said I don't think it'd be worth my time or your money to invest any of this material, any of this labor cost, any of this time into this
Yeah,
project.
just for a band-aid fix. If you're going to
Yeah.
actually fix it, it's going to be a lot more money than you
Yeah,
have.
and really that's with any kind of because that's what it would have been, was a remodel. There's a question you have to ask yourself is, where do we stop? So like the it was kind of ripped, the walls are stretched and ripped, the boards are broken. It's not in good shape. So it's like, where do you stop? Do you just patch the roof and then say, I hope the structural roof is intact? Or do you tear the sheeting off the roof? And then if you do that, then are you going to check the walls out? Are you going to tear the sheeting off the walls? And then it's like, if we do that, if we're putting all this work into it, do we just redo the whole roof? Right. So you have to ask the question, where do you stop? While it might look like a super quick fix,
To
that could
someone
only
that's
take a couple.
untrained.
Yeah. So like it might only take a couple $100 to do. If you're going to do something like that, especially, I mean, that's what we've learned very, very, very hard in this season is if you're
Yeah,
going to
very
do something,
recently.
make sure you do it the right way the first time, because
We did not do it the right way with our
yeah,
bus, even though
yeah,
we thought we were. Now
yeah,
we're homeless and having to start over completely. So that was a hard lesson.
yeah,
But it was needed because it brought us to where we are now, where we're
yeah.
needed.
So,
But
so,
so what was said about us?
so it was said that we were presented with a job, and while I had the skills to do this job, I turned the job down and I decided not to work when an opportunity of work was presented. And so if you're just the average reader and you say, wow, they're asking for donations for their ministry work and for their daily
At
lives.
that time, it was mostly for diapers and food, simple
Yeah,
things that we
yeah,
were struggling with having.
yeah. And so because what we were doing was we weren't going to campgrounds. We were going day to day to different cities, spending 1 or 2 days in a city, going to the next city, talking with people in the city, placing signs in the city, and doing like a homeless outreach and stuff like that from city to city. We weren't going to campgrounds. We were sleeping in Walmart parking lots, anywhere we wouldn't get kicked out of.
Anywhere for free because we're
Yeah,
not going to spend any money on
yeah.
campgrounds.
So we were just going, like, just living super basic. All we need is food for us and for our children, diapers and fuel. That was our only costs, and our
Because we were
phones.
solar, off
Yeah,
grid.
yeah,
Everything was very simple.
yeah.
That's
And
the
it
way we
still
want to
is.
live.
Yeah. We so we only need our basic needs, and also the supplies like Bibles and stuff which people sent in, and food that people sent in, and clothes that people sent in that we found at thrift stores for good
Sleeping
deals.
bags, hot hands,
Yep.
anything to
Yeah.
just help the homeless.
So that's what we did for a long time. And so during this time we were also doing that, and someone reached out and said, "Hey, can you fix this?" I looked at it, said no, but it was presented that we needed help, work was offered, and we turned it down. But knowing the other side of the story, that the camper wasn't really fixable, it wasn't a good use of her resources or our time that was trying to be focused in
But the
a
side
different
of that
direction.
story was that she was saying that we needed to be exposed
Yeah.
because we're asking for money and yet we won't work for it.
Yeah.
That you have a refusal to work
Hmm.
when that's not true at all.
Yeah.
And we were working, and if we were going to stop our ministry work and stop sharing the truth and getting out there and helping people that need it so badly, then we're going to make sure our time is worth it and what we're doing is fruitful for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And if we do any work with our hands, we're going to make sure that it's a good job. So we
Hmm.
can't look like, yeah, we'll patch your moldy thing that, you know, that's not going to be good for you in the future
Yeah.
and just call it a day. Like was building $1 million houses at
Hmm.
one point. He is very skilled in his work, and he can look at something as simple as a camper and be like, yeah, that's not, you can't just Band-Aid fix that,
Yeah.
especially if you're going to be hauling that around
Yeah.
and living in it with your children. You got to do something more. But, people hear that and it hurts them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, you won't do it, or it's like a spirit of offense almost.
Yeah. So yeah, so the other side of the story, like everything we just said, is there's a lot more to it than that. But the thing that we found odd was that this person didn't, when they made this post to like expose us and say that everybody needs to know about this so that this can not go on anymore, they didn't reach out to us like we talked about before and say, hey, it really upset me when you said that you wouldn't work. I feel like if you're asking for help, you should be willing to work for it, and then we could have explained our thought process behind the whole thing
And we
a lot
did
better.
to a point,
Yeah,
but
but I
it
mean,
wasn't
we
even.
could have expounded on it. We could have talked about it more, but there was we didn't even know that this was an issue.
Yeah.
Like we were presented with like, hey, can you do this? And I said, it's really not a good idea. And it was okay. And that was the end of it on our side. And we had never heard anything about it until this post was made, where like, I feel like a communication there could have fixed, or fixed the upset, hurt feelings, or fixed any amount of like animosity between anybody. And there'd be an exposing post. There could have just been clear communication, and even in the end, if you just, we talk about it and they disagree, it's like, well, that's our side of the story,
We
but
say all the time that 90% of problems could be fixed around a campfire.
yeah. We haven't had a campfire for a while. I miss
Yeah, that would
campfires.
be nice.
But yeah, so that was one of the main posts that was made about us.
And then that lady actually went to go and make a group about us saying exposing Alex and Lily for stuff. And, there's been lies for a long time saying that we're not honest with different things and we don't work. And, I think the main thing is that people don't realize that working for the kingdom is work.
Yeah. Or like, if it's hard for us to understand because we talked to a lot of people about it, but it really seems like a lot of the people that say like, oh, they don't work, are people that have normal, what you call like a W-2 job, so they're an employee. But I haven't been an employee. When was last? For at least 12 years now. I've been self-employed for the last 12 years.
Yeah, he was self-employed as a.
Employed.
Is that what I said?
You said self-employed.
Self-employed as a carpenter.
Yeah.
For 10 years.
So, I mean, like, even like if that's like, it seems like from what I can view from the outside in, it seems like that's what most people are talking about when they say like, oh, you don't have a job. It's like, where do you work? What do you do? Like, what is your position? Like, but just like in the same fashion that like you wouldn't hopefully you wouldn't wash dishes on Shabbat because that's work. That's still work, So even if you're working, if you're washing dishes, that's still work. So to say that somebody doesn't work, for the most part, I work from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to sleep. I probably sit down for maybe an hour a day.
Yeah.
I'm not doing something for an hour a day, whether it's cleaning the house, taking care of our children, doing other projects that we've got going on, doing work for other people that we're doing up here, and doing like we've done jobs for some widows up here, helping them fix up their houses from damage and stuff, and helping other widows do this and that. And we've done a lot of jobs since we've been up here, but now that we're stationary and we're in one place for more than a day, we've done a lot more work up here. But I think a lot of people, for them, that what they would call work is that 40-hour work week.
Yeah, for someone else.
Yeah.
And usually it's not profitable. And most people hate their jobs. And I think that's where envy comes from too, because they're like, oh, well, you just travel the country and, do ministry work. Oh, wouldn't that be nice for us all to do it? But, Yahuwah says if we do seek first the kingdom, he will provide our needs. And we've seen that for 2 years.
Yeah. But what we really, the main reason that we built a bus and moved into it is because we really quickly learned, after only a couple of years of like living on our own and doing everything, was that it was entirely self-consuming. Mm-hmm. Every bit of money that we made got consumed by the power bill, the water bill, the rent, the insurance, the transportation to and from work.
Having two vehicles for us, and car insurance, and registration, and everything that entails. It's like if you're going to live in the system completely, have a house that you're renting or whatever, you don't have time for ministry work. We
Yeah.
barely had time to see each other. We barely had time to actually be a family. We barely had time to read scripture. We barely had time to we didn't do any ministry work. We at all.
Well, I would normally get home at 6 p.m. I would leave at 6 a.m., get home at 6 p.m. because you've got some travel time in between there, working a 10-hour day. And the children would go to sleep right around 7. So I would get to see my children for an hour a day on the work week. And then by the time that happens, I only get like a 2 hours with Lily every night, maybe. And then I go to sleep. So I'm that whole entire work week is like just consumed with like, now I got to get home, help Lily with anything she didn't get done during the day, make my lunch, go to sleep, to maybe take a shower, wake up and do it again, all the way until Shabbat. Then Shabbat's your one day of rest. And then on day one, if we were to dedicate that day just to going out or like just doing homeless ministry stuff, there's all this stuff that you forget. Like, okay, so now we've got to load the car up with food. We've got to do, and then like it just takes so much time to do all that stuff, and then to go out for an hour or something, and then most of the time, you're just tied to one area. Where like we planted 250 signs in over 20 states. We've talked to.
So when he says signs, they said to honor the Sabbath day, the fourth commandment, and to repent.
So we've placed like what we call like set apart signs, truth signs, in super high traffic areas in over 20 states, 250 of them, and we've talked to way more people than that. We've probably talked to, I would say, at least 1,500 people in the last couple of years,
and helped probably at least 700 and I don't know, a lot of homeless
people. I would
people.
Say that helping them is talking to them about.
Well, I mean, yeah, but even with physical stuff like clothing and food and whatever we could muster up at the time.
Yeah, but so I think like Lily said, it's a lot of people think that, and we've actually heard it from people, that they think that what Lily posts on Facebook is our entire life. And I can assure you that is less than
10%.
10% for sure. And in the last like year, it's probably been
and not
like less
not
than
only
5.
just our life, but like the amount of ministry work that we've done. When we're going out and talking to people, we're going shopping at Walmart and we'll see a homeless person. We never really stopped to record it, to post about it. 90% of the people that we talk to, only Yahuwah saw.
Yeah, or just last night, the dude that I bumped into at the truck stop.
Yeah.
I literally, I got in the bus, started driving, was like, man, that was a great conversation. And he was like already a truth seeker, and so he had a lot of pieces that he was connecting the dots on, and I was able to.
Great conversation.
Yeah, it was super cool because he's right by our town that we're staying in right now. So hopefully we can stay in touch with him. But I got in the bus and I started driving. I was like, darn it, I should have recorded that conversation. I should have had the mic on. But it's like, you just never know when that stuff's going to rise. So probably 99% of our like conversations and stuff that we did wasn't documented or recorded, because for the most part, we just pray all the time that Yahuwah brings people to us.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the truck stop from paying for our fuel from our trip that we had that day, and I was literally just floating around in my own brain, and all of a sudden this guy's just talking to me about something, and I wasn't ready for anything, and it was pretty late at night, and
it was awesome though.
But it turned into a 20-minute discussion about super deep truth stuff, so it was great.
Yeah, he was asking us questions about our ministry and different things, and turns out that he's not eating pork, he's not celebrating the holidays, and he's got one foot in the door, and hopefully we can get together with him for a Sabbath.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell him about the main post that was made about us?
Well, so there was another, and well, I guess I have to give both sides of the story to make this one make sense. So it was when we were in Texas, right? Yeah, it was when we were in Texas this last winter. Someone reached out to us with the opportunity to help build their house that they were building.
Like an entire house.
Yeah, an entire house, like an actual full-size house, like a real actual house. Like I think it was going to come out all said and done to right around $500,000 from start to finish.
From $400,000 to $500,000, depending on what they decided to go with for different things.
Yeah, but so that was the proposition. So they had reached out to us to say, hey, you've got this construction background, and they were Torah observant. They said we could really use somebody who knows what they're doing to come and help us build this house. And so it went from coming and helping to build the house to turning into I was going to be the only one building the house. There was maybe someone that they knew that could come and help sometimes, and then they weren't able to be there all the time. They could help
Well,
sometimes.
it would be more beneficial if you would share just what they said in the post and then explain our perspective.
Well, I was going to lay it out the other way. It makes more sense for me to do that
Well,
in
that's
my own
not how
brain.
people hear it. That's the problem. What
Oh,
they're
I gotcha.
hearing is slander.
That makes sense. Well, I think you'd have to say that part because I don't know much about what that all entailed.
So I looked for the post again this evening, and I was hesitant because it was a very painful post to even hear in the beginning and to see a lot of comments in the beginning from people that I thought loved us and were very close to us. So even today, I was hesitant to even, you know, look for it and read it again. And I prayed. I said, Yahuwah, just guard my heart. And I couldn't find it. I think it's gotten taken down. I'm not sure. I haven't asked anyone. I don't talk about it. So I'm just assuming that it either got taken down or it's not meant for me to see or whatever reason. But what was said in the post, which is what people say more than anything about us, is that, we're not working at all. And then we just ask for donations, and we're basically just lazy people that just feed off of other people's donations, which anyone that really knows us and has seen the fruits of our labors, they know it's the exact opposite, that we are working day and night, all day long, just trying to further the kingdom and bear fruit and just do everything for Yahuwah.
Yeah, when we were on the road full time for like two straight years, we would wake up. If you have children, you don't get to decide when you wake up. You wake up when they do, and they would
Young
wake
children,
up.
at least.
Yeah, from 6:30 to 7:30 is when they would wake up. So that was our never later than 7:30. But we would often, most nights, stay up until around 2 in the morning.
Yeah, just working.
Yeah, because the children take up so much time, and so does traveling and doing the ministry outreach stuff, that then to do anything else like clean our house or prepare anything,
or
like
even
Lily,
researching her.
yeah, Lily making zits or researching where we're going to go next, or talking to other people that are reaching out to us and different things, to do any of that stuff, we had to be up until like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
So we were getting like 5 to 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
for
a long
almost
time.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least a year.
Yeah.
After Eliana was born.
Yeah. So continue.
You kind of derailed me.
Sorry, you were talking about that. Anybody that knows us knows that we actually work a lot.
Yeah, but anyways, that's what's said about us a lot. And then there's other people that'll go even further and say that we steal people's money, which is anything but the truth. Backstory. Again, the way that we live, we found out the other day.
Yeah, I wanted to get into this.
Okay, you say that because you're better at it.
So we're like extremely passionate about like
simple living.
I would say simple living, not like necessarily tiny houses, because you can build a shed, or you could even build a cabin, but living simply, like with looking around at the way that we lived when we lived in our regular house. Like I said, it's entirely self-consuming. That you have a water bill, you have a power bill, but so much of that stuff is so, like, the numbers to me now that we've lived this way are like shocking. Like, not a lot of people know, so it's just a number to you, but we use for power in our bus, we have everything stored in batteries. It's fully off grid, but we use in power about 1,000 watts a day. And so if you, like, most light bulbs that are not LED light bulbs in homes are 75 watts, which means that if you run that light bulb for 1 hour, it uses 75 watts of power. So we pretty much only do that a little over 10 times a day in our bus, with running our fridge, our lights, charging our phones, doing this and that, grinding wheat, whatever. We use about 1,000 watts a day, while the average U.S. house uses 30 to 40,000 watts a day.
Insane.
So on the low end of things, an average American house uses 30 times the amount of power that we use in a day.
And that's paid for, and ours is not.
Has to be
ours
paid
is free.
For. Yeah, and ours is essentially free because we're either getting solar power or we're charging while we're already driving other places with, otherwise we wasted power. So just like the power, we're 30 times less power than an American home. And then we learned just, and I knew that for a long time, but we just recently looked up the water usage numbers.
My
And
jaw hit the floor when I found out.
sometimes it's incorporated our drinking water, but we've averaged about, and it didn't include showers because we don't have a shower in the bus. It averaged, and we really only took a shower like once a week or every other week for the most part. But so that number isn't like we're not counting that. It's a big difference. But we would use about 20 gallons of water a week. And sometimes we would drink out of that water. Sometimes we would get a couple gallons of other water. So at most 30 gallons a week.
And a lot of times any other water we got was spring water, so it was free.
Yeah. But what's the number for an American household?
300 to 400.
So an average American house uses 300 to 400 gallons of water a day. Per day.
Ours is 20 a week.
So that's over 100 times. Oh no, wait.
What was it? Here,
10 times 20.
Let's do the math quick. I totally forgot what it was.
So it's right around 20 times the amount of water that we use in a week per day for an American household. And I think you said the number was 2,200.
2,100. And then
so
if you divide that by our 20, it is 105 times as much water per week than we use per week.
105 times the amount of water.
All this to say, when we're asking for donations, it is literally like, if it's not only for ministry work, and we make it clear, if we're asking for Bibles, it goes to Bibles. If we're, different things like that. If we're asking for ourselves, we make it known, like we need food, diapers, gas, this. We're not a pastor that gets fed all the donations, the tithes of their congregation, then go off to their $1 million house. We carry our water in buckets.
Or have a private jet.
We poop in a bucket with a bag in it and compost and peat moss. We use 20 gallons of water a week. Our solar is free. Everything that we do is like as minimal as you can get. And we are so passionate about it, because if crap does hit the fan coming up and things do get worse, like so many people are saying, we're going to be way better off than the majority of the population. We're very passionate about being off grid.
Well, I mean, so many people, and even not even in the tour community, but people that are like what you call preppers, they have freezer upon freezer of chest freezers just stacked up, running solely off of grid power, which is just, everybody knows is guaranteed to go. I mean, it went down in Texas when just a couple more people than normal used their electric heaters. It went down for a long time, and then
you lose thousands of dollars of food.
And so if you're storing up good quality meat, 10 pounds of beef, ground beef, at a really, really good price adds up to 70. It's like $7 is a pretty good price per pound for ground beef. That's real quality. So that's 70 pounds. 10 pounds is $70. And if you have a whole chest freezer, that's oftentimes like 2,000 pounds. So you can lose a lot of stuff real fast. But if you're thinking about living more simply and having free power and working towards that, it's cheaper and it's more reliable.
So the only reason we say all that is just for someone to say that we're stealing any money is just, it's kind of hilarious. Like, what are we living in a mansion? Do we got Ferraris?
I think it would be extremely like people wouldn't even be able to comprehend it if we would have done, when we were living in the bus full time, like a day in the life video.
They would have been like, oh wow, they really do live it simply. I know a lot of people that would say that they can't handle it, but for us it's paradise. We want to be together as much as possible. We want to be, and it's not paradise because traveling's extremely hard, and everyone that actually followed us saw that we suffered immensely. This world is against sojourning and against the will of Yah, for sure.
Well, just that was hard, but then you incorporate heat into it, the trying to hide from the heat in the summers, and
that was difficult. But anyways, back to the what was said about us for that main post. It was posted in a big group with at least 11,000 tour observant people now, and they said that they were exposing us, that they offered for us to build their house, and
This is cool. This is like
And
I'm hearing. Sorry to interrupt you again. It's like I'm hearing this for the first time because I heard it like once or twice, and I just completely like
blocked it
it
out.
just went in one ear and out the other. 'Cause, like that's so not true. It's not even funny. And so I don't even. I literally. That's why I said you got it because I don't even remember this.
But they said that they offered for Alex to make $40 an hour, that, you know, we just refused to work, that Alex is a capable man, and like all this stuff. Like, just, it was a very, very long post just slandering us, saying that we don't work, that nobody should ever donate to us for any reason, that we're not doing ministry work. I don't even know. That's the shocking part, because I don't even know where that came from,
I remember.
saying
Yeah,
that
that
we
was.
don't do any ministry work at
And
all,
it's all fake. Like
and it's all
everything we say
fake.
that we have done is not true. But what I don't understand, like you said, it blows your mind. We have a picture and a GPS coordinate and a timestamp of every single sign we've ever placed.
And we've had tour observing people being like, "Oh, I saw this in my
We've
town."
met tour observing people while we were
Yep.
placing signs. It's one of the people, the person that made the post about the camper. The last time we saw them in person was when we were placing a sign.
Yeah.
We bumped into them randomly,
And they gave us a hug and acted
everything was
like
great.
everything was great. And
Yeah.
then the next thing, that other person for that other camper is exposing us.
Saying that, and they were one of the people saying everything we do is not even real. It's all just
Yeah.
fake.
Even though the last time they saw us, hugged us, we were
We were
doing
actually
ministry
doing
work at
ministry work.
midnight. We were
It
out
was,
there at midnight
yeah.
placing signs in Branson, Missouri.
Yeah.
Unreal. But anyways, you keep derailing me.
Well, it just keeps going off into the woods.
All right, you pick it up.
Well, I don't. We're past the part that you want to talk about now?
Yeah, now you can show our side.
Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
First,
quick breakdown of it.
If you hear this, what you hear so far is that Alex and Lily don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pretend you don't even know us. You don't even know us at all. You've
Maybe
never
you
heard of us. What?
Maybe they
Maybe you don't. Maybe you're listening to us for the first time and you're like, what's this about? I've been slandered. Let's hear it. Anyways, if you're here, glad that you're here. So pretend that you don't know us, and you hear these people are claiming to do ministry work. They're asking for their whole life to be funded purely by donations. We offered for them to build a house and help them out, even paying $40 an hour, and they refused. They're bad people. Don't ever donate to them. They're scamming people. That's the side of the story that you hear. And if you hear that, if I heard that about someone else, I'd be like, oh, that sounds pretty bad.
Fishy.
That sounds fishy. That's not good. Maybe we should talk to the people. Maybe we should just leave it, pray about it. I don't know these people. I don't even know the people posting about it. But what I saw in the comments, people I've never met in my entire life saying, oh, wow, that's horrible. So I'm so glad you're exposing them, this and this. And it's just like this fire that's just getting bigger and higher and higher and higher and just fuming. It was just crazy. I was like
the amount of people like thank you for doing this, because like we talked about in the beginning, a lot of people say like this is for the good that this stops and doesn't continue, and so then you have people like Lily said who've never seen this even username on Facebook, never messaged this person, never met him in person. They've never reached out to us. They're saying, oh, thank you so much. And like I said about the story with my own parents, they're just taking the facts from someone they trust and not questioning it.
And the even crazier thing, it's not someone they trust.
Yeah.
Most of the people in the comments never even met that person in their life.
Just like you have never, I have no idea who this person is, and they haven't talked to me. They probably have no idea who the other person is.
It's literally like you're going grocery shopping and someone comes up to you like, have you heard about this one person? They're bad. Don't ever, if you ever meet them, don't ever.
Oh, thank you.
Don't ever. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Like that's the extent of what it was.
Yeah,
and I think
like
that's ultimately why the post got taken down, if it did, because a lot of our true friends were like, none of this is facts.
Yeah.
I don't know where any of this came from, but that does not sound like their character at all. And I've seen the fruits of their ministry work firsthand.
Yeah.
I've seen people be saved and baptized through them going out and reaching people on the streets, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. So pick back up on my part that I was telling before.
So we were in Texas, and these people reached out to us.
Reached out, said, hey, can you build this house? help build the house. Then it turned into I would be the only one building it. And then by the time that I had, so there was a little bit of communication before I had even seen the plans. And I said, that's, that's so far based off of the description, that's something that I'm capable of building easily. And then once I saw the plans and I started to dig into it a little bit, there was some stuff that made it go from something that I could easily build on my own to being very challenging. There was the first and biggest difficulty that I found was this house, $400,000 to $500,000 house, was not being built on like what you'd call, I guess, the main land.
Yeah,
it was being built on an island.
Mm-hmm. Or a normal foundation.
Yeah, so it's being built on an island on the East Coast, somewhere at an island off the coast of North Carolina, and because it's out on the island connected to the actual ocean, this house was going to be built on concrete pillars that start your first floor framing at 10 feet off the ground.
It's on stilts.
On big concrete poles.
Being raised in Wisconsin, that was not something Alex ever had
I can do
with.
it easily. It doesn't really make anything any different.
Not easily.
Well, I'm saying like the framing on a post is not any different, but being 10 feet off the ground, when all the houses I ever built, you can stand on the ground and work next to your first floor framing, and then you put the floor on, and then you stand on your first floor. But if you start 10 feet off the ground, that means that all of your material has to go up 10 feet. And you can't just go and stand on the side of your first floor framing that you're doing, your joists and your sheeting and your rim joists and stuff. You have to be 10 feet off the ground to be able to stand on it, which means you either have to have a whole bunch of scaffolding, or you have to have a scissor lift, or you have to have some kind of other lift to be able to be off the ground. So that was the first challenge. Is like, this makes everything take almost double the time, and then it's a lot harder, especially to do something by yourself. If you have to I can roll a post around, move it around on the ground, no problem. But if I have to do that and then get it 10 feet in the air by myself, that's almost not even possible. And then another challenging aspect of the house was so it's 10 feet off the ground. You have to build the first floor. Then there was what's called a tall wall. So most walls 8 to 10 feet tall. You put the walls up, you put the trusses on, or if you're going to do a second story, you build your 8 to 10 foot walls. You build another floor deck with floor joists and stuff, and then you build another 8 to 10 foot wall, or it's lofted. But what this house had was it had 8 foot walls, I think. Or I think they were 9 foot, but then it had a tall wall, which means it's a wall that doesn't go up 8 feet and then you can build on top of it. This wall, I think it was 26 feet tall. So that, I've built walls that are taller than that. I think the tallest wall I built was like 32 feet. But to do that, it takes at least 2 to 3 people. I could build the wall myself easily, but it takes 2 to 3 people, probably 2 to 3 people on the floor deck managing the wall, and one person either in a crane or in a huge lift with like a 40-foot boom, which I used to use all the time, but they have to lift that wall up, and then you have to have people on the ground, on the floor deck, to nail it in, secure the wall, brace the wall, do this. The person should be in the forklift the whole time, making sure the wall doesn't tip over on anybody and kill somebody. So there was just so many things about it.
It was a very complicated build that would have probably, if you did it yourself, if it was even possible, at least 6 months of straight working.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that was like, I was like, this, I could do it myself, but it would be at least 6 months. And because you're doing a 2-story house, that means that tall wall, 24 feet tall, that's where the roof starts. So if I was doing this on the ground, I'd be 26 feet off the ground to start roofing with your roof, sheeting. I didn't get to the point of seeing, I don't think they had decided yet if they're going to do steel roof or shingles, but add another 10 feet to that, and you're potentially 36 feet off the ground just to start your roof framing. Then you go up another 10 feet for your roof. I could be almost 50 feet off the ground, which is extremely dangerous.
And all by yourself, like completely by yourself. No one else there. I think the guy, the husband said that he could come help after he's done with work, but our work was going to be done before then, because we would like to have dinner together. And we really considered this. We were like, oh, we want to help a tour observant family.
And to make it extremely clear, I loved building houses, and I still do.
Yeah,
It
Alex
was
is a master carpenter.
it was like I got extreme joy out of building houses. It's so much fun, especially once I got the basics of being a normal carpenter down, and I started to advance in the skills of like learning, not just like putting boards together and doing what somebody tells you to do, but starting to learn load bearing stuff of how to frame a door opening so that the wall doesn't collapse. And then then you get that down. Then I started to understand loads of trusses and how to do stuff like that and carry the load and make sure that nothing was built wrong. And multiple times I caught, like the people that would make the blueprints, like, you missed this here, saying it's good with this, but it needs additional bearing, and then that needs to be carried all the way down to the foundation. And we've caught several problems with regular builds.
One thing that is really like the reason all of this hasn't shaken my faith at all is because I've been with Alex for 11 years now, and he loves to work
Yeah.
to the point where I'm like, Alex, slow down. We need you in the house for a little bit today. Like, I miss you. Can you eat lunch with us? Like, he wants to be working with his hands. He wants to be building, but we want to make sure everything that we're doing, like Alex went down an hour and a half from, or an hour from us to work for widows, and like he redid the trim on their windows, helped it to not leak, restaining their porch, and we were all doing it for like, well, we said we can do it for free of charge unless you feel led to pay us for it, and if you can't afford it all, we'll do it for free, and we'll get the materials for you and everything. And like, everything that we want to do with our hands, we want to make sure that it's worth it,
Yeah.
and that it's for the kingdom, and
And
that
it's
it's
not just
not in vain.
Yeah.
Because when Alex was building $1 million houses, it was vain. They didn't need a
lot of
4-car
times it
garage.
wasn't
They didn't
their
need $1 million garage.
Yeah, a
They
lot
didn't
of times
need
it
any of
wasn't
it.
even their real house.
Yeah, it was like their side house, and they got, more money that they're just crapping out. And ultimately, the reason that we did not do that house, because of all the complications and everything, and also having to go halfway across the country to a state that we had never been in.
Well, I was going to keep going on details.
Well, I don't want to get in too much because people don't need to know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if we're just going to tell a story, we might as well tell it.
Okay.
So if you're writing this down so far, 10 feet off the ground to start the
On
first floor.
stilts.
That's my number one. Like, that's a problem. Number two, tall wall. That's kind of like, that's a big deal to do
By
by
yourself.
myself. And it required at least a 40-foot, probably even bigger than that. It's called the telehandler. So it would have required at least something, a big piece of equipment for that. And then just a lot of more equipment additionally to build that, 10 feet off the ground. So there's a lot of stuff there. But then, what was the last point I was talking about? Oh yeah, the height of being on the roof is extremely dangerous by myself. And then the entirety of the time that we're going back and forth communicating all these details, trying to figure out if this is something that we can do. And like I said, I love to build houses. So this was more of like me trying to build the house than like it really was like, it wasn't something that we should have even been considering, but we wanted to help them out. And I love building houses, and it's like, let's do this,
And
like,
we're like, would bless us with money and
yeah. So we're like,
things.
let's make this work, essentially, is our thought process behind it.
Yeah.
But there's like all these like, that makes it more hard, that makes it harder, that makes it harder. And then so the whole time we're
all
communicating,
the doors started to close, as we would say.
the more time we're starting to communicate all this, the whole time the husband was like, well, I think I'm just gonna have my buddy do it, who's a contractor. And then I was like, well, I said, why don't we talk about some more details? And then he's like, can you do it? And then he, like, I think it was 2 or 3 times. He's like, well, I found my buddy will do it. And he's like, well, can you do it? And then the last time he said,
it was very inconsistent.
yeah, the last time he said,
for us.
the last time when I said that, I was like, I don't think we'll be able to do it. There's just too many difficulties that, for us, that it wouldn't. And then the time commitment, we really didn't have the ability to just randomly commit 6 to 12 months to build a house just out of nowhere, and we wanted to keep doing our mobile ministry work.
That was a big thing, because we're like, we know that Yahuwah, not our own decision, it was Yahuwah that brought us out of your old job, because he told us, time is short and we have important things to do.
Yeah.
I can't have you building $1 million houses. I can't have you building $500,000 beach houses on stilts out in an island that isn't off grid or glorifying me in any way.
Yeah. But so the last time when I talked to him, I said, I don't think we're gonna be able to do this just because of all of the things involved. He said, oh, that's okay. I've got my contractor buddies lined up to do it. And then the next day, Lily showed me that his wife had posted saying in a different Torah observant group saying, "Is there anybody that can help us build our house? Because we really need help. We don't have anybody to help us
It
build it."
honestly, I think
Uh,
this is a big problem in a lot of marriages, especially
well,
when
just
the
not
men
communicating.
are working all the time,
Yeah,
is that there's not
yeah,
communication. So I think the one of the huge reasons that she even made the post trying to expose us because she didn't hear any of the
it could be.
conversation from you and her
It
husband.
could be. Yeah, but like Lily said, it's because you're so busy. Because it's literally that
Yeah, and
self-consuming
they
rat
had a lot of
race.
children, and I remember right before she made that post about us, she messaged me and she was asking for prayer for her sick baby. I was like, yeah, I'll pray for you. And
Hmm.
I spent at least 20 minutes just in the dark, closed eyes, like in tears, like praying for Yahuwah to help their baby.
Yeah,
And I loved her. And I didn't even really know her that much. And I was like, just, help the children and help her. And because I know what it's like being a mother. And I had compassion for her. And then, like, literally the next day, like that post, and
yeah,
I cried. I
yeah,
wept when I saw it.
yeah.
It
But I
was
think
really hard.
one of probably one of the biggest problems that we saw with the build was that this was in a high class neighborhood, and it was a very expensive house, and it wasn't like a subdivision or a suburb, but there was enough houses that were already there that there was some kind of like an HOA or something established, which is homeowners association, kind of like a suburb where there's rules. Even though it's your land, there's still rules. And so we have a bus that we have to live in and still maintain our family while I build this house. So we said, was there any possibility that we can just park the bus on site? We don't need power. If you've got water, that's great. Otherwise, we can get it somewhere else. We don't need garbage disposal. We don't need any bills, no nothing. Just if whatever. So it was at first it was yes, no problem. You can park on site, no problem. And then the more we looked into it, double checking, asking details, it was more. The response that we got was, is better. He said, I think it's better, because I said, are you sure, before we start heading, because we were ready to head that way. Like we were, we were like a day away from like, well, we're going to start heading to North Carolina to build this house. I said, are you sure that there's not going to be a problem with this? Because if I have to drive any amount of time and like my family's off site, it's really not something that we would want to do. And he said, I feel like he said, my philosophy is it's better to do things first and then ask questions later. And that was like, to me, it was like, if I'm going to be like, there's so much sacrifice that goes into it, obviously for us, because I'm not a construction company. At one point I was, but right now I've turned into a mobile ministry. And so
And
for
you're
me to,
one man. You were working
yeah,
with a full crew with
yeah. So
full
for me to
materials
revert
and
and
lifts.
make a lot of these sacrifices, and then at the end of the day to not have a guarantee from the person that wants me to build the house that I have somewhere to even be while I'm working, was kind of like, to me, it was like, I'm not like viewed as like, you're like, we're going to take care of you here. It
Yeah.
was like, well, hopefully you'll be all right.
Yeah. And it seemed very irresponsible because, like, we're a family. We
Yeah.
got 3 children. We can't just be kicked out when we've traveled all that way in the middle
Yeah.
of jobs. Like,
But
it's a big deal.
yeah, like all, and we're not upset about any of this at all.
No.
And like Lily said, there's probably a whole and like, the only reason that we haven't reached out to get the other side of the story is because there's no benefit. We're not going to make a post exposing them. We had the whole, just like with the other lady, we had the whole interaction. Everything ended well. I said, we don't really have the ability to do this house right now. And that was the end of it. Everything was great. Like he said, not a problem. I've got my buddy's going to build it. My buddy's got a contracting company with his own guys. He can build it, no problem. But so that's how it ended, but so I'm not upset that, he didn't guarantee me or like a spot to be while I built the house or anything. And like Lily said, they were probably so busy and with all their children, they've got a lot of children in their daily lives, that it's hard to communicate and stuff. So we're not upset about this in any way,
Yeah.
And so when I say like anything, we're not upset about it and mad at them. We still love them a lot.
Yeah.
It's really, and all we are is just hurt by it.
Yeah.
Like with, there was a situation where I think it was in involvement with that first post that we talked about. Someone reached out to us, or not, didn't reach out to us, sorry. With that first post, somebody had commented on that post that was one of our best friends, and it was just the saddest thing that I've probably to date that I've read,
Yeah.
because they were our closest friends, and it was just a blatant lie about our character and something that we had done that was like I told Lily when she read that to me, the comment, I said, the way that this person said that we acted, I said, that was never even a thought in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, like I related, just like when Yahuwah, when they were doing wickedness and stuff, he said, it never even entered my mind that you would be that wicked. Like that was the feeling. I was like, I had never even imagined doing this to this person, what they said that we did, which was just so sad. Like I could never even have imagined doing that to them. And but here they are online saying that this is factual. They actually did this to me.
And we're not going to go into detail about that because
Yeah.
it is a very sensitive topic, and we do love them very,
Yeah.
very dearly.
Yeah.
And we,
But it's just so sad. Like that's what I was saying is like with this the house building, with the camper, and every other like situation that somebody like slanders. It's the only thing that we like have is just like it
pain, it
hurts.
hurts.
It's incredibly sad to see that like someone that you talk to and like Lily said prayed for a lot. We're trying to help them to see them act this way. It's just like you're like, man, how did it go from this ending fine? Like we like in the first situation, the last time we saw that lady, we were hugging her, planting, doing our ministry work, and then it's like, how did we get from this? No communication between us, them and us, and then all of a sudden there's this post made against us. Like it's just so sad, and it's like, how did it go from this to that?
The enemy.
Yeah.
You know, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against spiritual powers,
Yeah.
demons, the enemy, accusing, planting seeds in people's minds. That's why whenever we hear anything bad about anyone, we take it to prayer immediately. And if we have ill will towards someone, and like this, we are 100% sure that this person is in the wrong, we take it to prayer. And even we've seen ministries completely break Sabbath, and we had a time where like, well, we should expose this. And Yahuwah said no. Yahuwah said, be silent. I don't need you to expose it. Sit and pray with me. And then, that friendship was mended over time.
Yeah.
And they're some of our best friends. Like, you really need to just ask for what Yahuwah wants you to do and not what your emotions are telling you to do, because our hearts are deceitful.
Yeah.
Who can understand it?
But because we maintained that relationship and we did call out a transgression and we were firm on it and we lovingly told them about it and we said, this is not something that can continue. If you're going to say that you're doing all the things that you're doing, this behavior needs to change. It needs to become back in alignment with the scriptures. We were able to see repentance in that area as far as we know, so.
Yeah. And that brings me into a verse just where Alex was talking about how sad it is, especially that one comment that was made about us from some of our best friends. Just absolutely heartbreaking, something I could have never imagined them saying about us. It makes me think about how Yahuwah feels. 1 second.
Which one do you know what verse it is? Or?
Yeah, I think it's this one. If not, it was one of the ones I wanted to share. Jeremiah 9, 1-9. Oh, that my head were waters, and my eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. Oh, that I had in the desert a traveler's lodging place, that I might leave my people and go away from them. For they are all adulterers, a company of treacherous men. They bend their tongue like a bow. Falsehood and not truth has grown strong in the land. For they proceed from evil to evil, and they do not know me, declares Yahuwah. Let everyone be aware of his neighbor, and put no trust in any brother. For every brother is a deceiver, and every neighbor goes about as a slanderer. Everyone deceives his neighbor, and no one speaks the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies. They weary themselves committing iniquity. Heaping oppression upon oppression and deceit upon deceit, they refuse to know me, declares Yahuwah. Therefore thus says Yahuwah of hosts, Behold, I will refine them and test them, for what else can I do, because of my people? Their tongue is a deadly arrow, it speaks deceitfully. With his mouth each speaks peace to his neighbor, but in his heart he plants an ambush for him. Shall I not punish them for these things, declares Yahuwah, and shall I not avenge myself on a nation such as this? the saddest thing about that is Yahuwah speaking about his own people,
Yeah.
his beloved.
We should do a whole entire podcast on like the sad Yahuwah moments.
Yeah,
like
it's a lot.
it's there's so many moments where it's like Yahuwah's just like
brokenhearted.
Exactly like we were saying, like that's the only thing that we like feel about this is like, man, is that
Grieving.
sad. Like, and it's almost like it's sadness like coupled with shock and like disbelief of like, I can't even imagine, and it's like, but that's so sad that they think I did that.
And I think they view us that way.
Yeah, and it's like, but and not only did I not do that, it's like I can't even imagine having ever thought of even doing that. Like that was never even a thought in my mind. And like here you see who's like, goodness, it's like he can't even believe it. And there's so many parts in scripture where it's like that, just crazy.
All right, I want to read a couple other verses. Yeah. Psalm 15. This was another good one I found. It's the whole psalm. It's short. O Yahuwah, who shall sojourn in your tent? Who shall dwell on your holy hill? He who walks blamelessly and does what is right, and speaks truth in his heart, who does not slander with his tongue, and does no evil to his neighbor, nor takes up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised, but who honors those who fear Yahuwah, who swears to his own hurt and does not change, who does not put out his money at interest and does not take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. And then Mark 11:25. And whenever you stand praying, forgive, if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also who is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. That's where we're at with everything. Yeah. Anything that anyone's done against us, relatives, friends, strangers, forgiveness, and not holding on to pain. Like we say we're hurt by it, and I think, a certain point of grieving can't just be fully to a point where it doesn't hurt anymore, especially with like a death of a loved one. Like when you really love someone and they betray you, it's always going to kind of be there. But you can choose to surrender that pain and move on and not let it consume you, because it can very easily consume you and it can break your faith.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's just like where was that now?
That was Mark 11:25.
Okay, so Mark 11. That's like what you're saying. If you look at Matthew 5:24, the reason why you should do that, it says, okay, so I'll start a little, I'll just do Matthew 5. 21 through 26, it says, you have heard, this is Messiah talking, you have heard that it was said of them of old time, you shall not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of Sheol. And then he says, therefore, if you bring any gift to the altar, which is a sacrifice, and there remember that your brother has anything against you, leave there your sacrifice before the altar and go your way first and be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your offering. Agree with your adversary quickly while you are in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary delivers you to the judge, and the judge delivers you to the officer, and you be cast into prison. Verily I say unto you that you shall know that shall by no that okay, so I'm trying to go KJV to regular speech. I'll retry that again. Verily I say unto you, you shall by no means come out thence till you have paid the utmost farthing. So he's saying like the reason that you need to not harbor that stuff against your neighbor or your brother is because if you're in that position, Yahuwah says, don't even come to me. He says, don't come and offer anything to me. He said, make it right first with your brother, just like it says, where it says like if somebody hates their brother, how can they say they love Yahuwah who they haven't even, they hate somebody who they can see. How can they love somebody they haven't even seen? If this is how you treat someone who's right in front of you, how can you claim to treat the Creator differently?
I got another one. It's James 1:19 through 27. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of Yahuwah. Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. If anyone thinks he is religious or righteous, and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's righteousness is worthless. Righteousness that is pure and undefiled before Yahuwah the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, in the context of slander, what does it look like to be unstained from that?
Like, as the person that's being slandered?
Yeah.
I think, like, because you can't control what they say, to be unstained from it would be, like we talked about before, like either like retaliating back and like slandering them, or like, just blowing up and have an anger response, or to let it like cripple you, like you said, or like, where we've seen people who, get this, and I can't remember where I was just reading it, and it says, like, I think it's in Hebrews, where it talks about, like, there's this part where it talks about persevering, and he said, and I can't exactly remember, but it said, like, you haven't persevered unto like blood, like you don't even know, like, to death, like you don't even know what it is to persevere, like you think you do, but like Yahusha persevered until death, and so like but we've seen people who receive the smallest amount of pushback, and not even in just Torah observance, of like people that are like, oh, this is like great truth, and like this is like free health, like any even like health stuff, people are like, this is the truth, and then they receive the smallest amount of pushback, and they just abandon the truth and go back to the ways of the world. And so like that would be a way that you could be stained or spotted by like slander, is if, like you said, just be, you're like, holy moly, like, and I mean, we had talked about this at one point of like, I can't imagine other people looking at the fruits of all of this slander and stuff. Like, we don't really know many people that have like put all of, like, we've given so much of our own personal lives up. Like I said, I love to build houses. I didn't want to stop building houses, but we felt a greater calling to stop building houses, stop building vain buildings. Like, the last building I was going to build was like, I think is a $450,000 pole barn. It was just a shed for this guy who raced cars on the weekend, and it was going to be his little party shed, where he partied with his friends and parked his $750,000 motorhome setup in that he would take to the races. And so I was like, it's all just vain. But I still wanted to build it because it was a really technical challenge. It was a 60-foot wide pole barn that was clear spanning, so there's no support beams for 60 feet. It was pretty cool, and we both have so many interests, but we've put all of that stuff aside.
We don't do anything for ourselves anymore.
No. And we've put everything aside. We have so many hobbies that we've just put aside and done only this, like, focused on Yahuwah's kingdom. And for us to do that, and then go a step further than lay all of our own like hobbies down, to move into a small space with our small children and fully travel and fully rely on Yahuwah. There were so many times that we had like $100 or $200, and we have no place to call our own. Every single thing we own is in the bus. We could blow a tire at any minute, and then a tire for the bus is $350 just for the tire before it's mounted, before you have somebody come out on the side of the highway and put it on. It would probably be at least a $600 ordeal if you blew a tire. And we had no backup plan. We only trusted the Creator. He supplied all of our needs through the hands of His servants. And then to see the amount of slander that we received, like I told Lily the other day, I said, I can't imagine just being someone else on Facebook and seeing like, if we looked at like a different couple with young children sacrificing everything and like fully trusting the Creator to supply every one of their needs every single day. They have no backup plan. They have no savings. They have nothing else but trust in the Father that He will provide for this mission that He's called them to do. And then they're just attacked and persecuted and lied about, slandered, and just literally drugged through the mud. We've never done any ministry work. I couldn't imagine being someone else seeing that. And it's like, okay, if you want to go and be a Torah missionary, you get destroyed. Like, there is no mercy for you. People will attack you, slander you, call you names, and like expose you and all this stuff. It's like, who else would want, like, see the fruits of, like, not many people are full time. There's a very few amount of people are doing this full time. And like, if you were looking at us doing this full time, you see what happened to us. Would you want to stand up and be like, I want to be a full time sojourner for the kingdom as well? Like, I just couldn't have, like, the fruits of all this stuff has got to be just so bad for so many other people.
And we actually just recently talked to one of our friends, and a couple of my friends actually, just recently in the last couple of weeks, they've been struggling financially a lot, and they've wanted to reach out for help, and they've felt led to reach out for help, but because of them personally seeing how much we've been attacked, they didn't. They won't ask for help because they don't want to be tore down. That's such a horrible thing. If it's to that point, we are failing at upholding the Torah.
Well, and
I don't care how much you say you're Torah observant. If you're doing that to other people, you are not fulfilling the law.
What's shocking to me is that there are, like I said, there's a very few amount of people. I would say almost with a certainty, there's less than 100 people in the United States of America that are full time traveling, full time talking to people, doing a homeless outreach, and actually saying, like, you need to be keeping these commandments. They're for your good.
And
the
also,
only thing the commandments
and especially, we don't know of a single other person doing it the way that we're doing, because almost everyone else goes and pays $25 to $50 a night at campgrounds. And that's a huge chunk of money, and that's something that we never did. And they have other vehicles and other things like that, and it's like, I don't know a single person that's been doing it as honestly as we have, and minimally, like, to where literally any donation that comes to us, where every penny is used for good. It's either just surviving or it's going to someone else, because we literally only take what we absolutely need.
And so, like I was saying, the most shocking part is that like I said, there's probably less than 100 people doing like this kind of ministry work, saying these commandments are for your good. The only thing it will bring is a massive blessing in your life to keep the commandments, especially to get into the kingdom, like that alone. But just the blessings we've seen in our own lives from keeping the commandments, like health being one of them. If you're not keeping the commandments of what to eat, you're going to be extremely unhealthy for your entire life.
Thousands of parasites in pork and shellfish.
So to see, like, there's not that many people doing this, and the people that are getting persecuted, while at the same time, you should here, let me look up this statistic.
For pastors?
No. How many? Oh, I gotta think about.
Well, that's another thing. Like, think about all the pastors. You can look for it.
How many missionaries go out from the U.S. every year? Okay, so it says 100. Wait. How many missionaries does the U.S. send out? The United States sends out 127,000.
What?
127,000 missionaries a year, approximately, to other countries. And is anybody asking these people that go out on these mission trips for sometimes 3+ years at a time, 3 years straight, people will sign up. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go door to door every day and talk to people about the lawless Messiah. They don't talk about keeping the commandments. They don't say, just accept Jesus into your heart and you're good.
And keep sinning.
Yeah. But so there's 127,000 of those people approximately go out every year from the U.S. on 3-year mission trips. Do you think any of them are asked, like, or is a statement ever made, if you don't work, you don't eat? All of these 127,000 missionaries are given 3 meals a day. They're provided for with their lodging. They're given nice clothes to wear so that they can look good representing their church and everything that's involved with it. But nobody has a problem with them that they're not going to work every day, because what they're doing, even as simple as that is just the basics of the not even 1 foot in the door of like actually believing in the Bible. And people like applaud them. That's hard work going and doing that. But someone that does it even harder, to where you're not guaranteed a spot to stay for the night. We've got kicked out. What would you say? Probably at least 200 times.
Yeah.
Probably at least 200 times we've gotten kicked out of places.
Like
And
Walmart's from security and different things,
yeah,
or wherever we're staying,
yeah,
or a literal forest fire kicking us out of the woods where we rented a campground.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
So we've gotten kicked out so many times. We don't have a place guaranteed to stay. We have no, like, those missionaries have an entire organization behind them of funding, to the point where they don't even have to think about if they're going to eat tonight.
And that's, if we're honest about the scriptures, is that not what Yahusha says?
Yeah.
Give no thought for tomorrow,
Yeah.
what you eat, what you wear. And also, what did he tell the disciples? Quit your fishing jobs and go do my
Follow me.
work, and you'll have bread along the way. You'll have lodging.
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters took care of them.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest commands, alongside taking care of widows, is taking care of the sojourner.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw the exact opposite from so many people.
Yeah.
And I will say, along with all the slander that we faced, we've gotten the most amazing help from other people as well.
Yeah.
Truly keeping Torah, truly loving us as like themselves, saying, oh, here's some funding for, just get diapers for yourself. Don't worry about it. You guys are out there doing the kingdom.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to, or doing work for the kingdom, you shouldn't even have to worry about these things.
Yeah.
Or like, if you're passing through my area, come over, I'll cook you a warm meal.
Yeah.
Like true hospitality, what we see in the scriptures, what Abraham would have done. He built his house at a crossroads, so every single traveler that came through, he could be hospitable towards and share the love of Yahuwah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, people, but we are failing at truly loving each other.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I see people fall away from the Torah and from Messiah every day, is the hatred and the slander and the pain.
Yeah. So like, just think about, like, somebody goes out, like missionaries go out, they're fully funded, they're fully taken care of. 127,000, and that figure said on average every year there's around 400,000 full-time missionaries around the world from other countries. So at least 400,000 people that are guaranteed funding for their clothes, their food, their transportation, their lodging, everything. And it's not like, and it doesn't, so many people, it really doesn't even benefit that well, because they're told a lie. But like, someone who is teaching, like, bringing the full truth of scriptures, Messiah's own words, not contradicting anything, it's all fits together. The message that we bring, we should be able to get just enough funding for the basic needs, like we've been talking about this whole time. But we've seen the opposite from the majority of the people. We've been slandered, we've been attacked, we've been lied about. There's just so many different things where it should be the opposite. Like Lily was saying, we should be able to see that, hey, there's less than 100 people. And I mean, I wonder, there's probably not a Google statistic.
It too.
There's probably not a Google statistic for this, but how many Torah observant people there are in the U.S.
Yeah.
To see that number, and then only 100 of those people are full-time missionaries, you could call it. It's shocking that those people don't have the funding they need, when there's 127,000 missionaries going on from the U.S. alone for just different forms of Christianity.
Yeah.
It's shocking to see that, like, that support for that kind of thing isn't there in our community.
And then not even like missionaries, like look at pastors.
Yeah. Like with their own private jets.
And then to the other aspect of it, like saying it's not work, are you going to say that farmers aren't working because they're not working a 9 to 5?
Yeah.
They're outside in their fields working all day long most days.
Uh-huh.
Constant harvesting, constant working.
Yeah.
Where are we going to draw the line? What is work?
Mm-hmm.
Is providing for your family not work?
Yeah.
You know, if I have a garden and I'm out in the garden for 3 hours a day, and then I come inside and I clean for our widow friend here for 2 hours, and then I make Ziti eat for 2 hours, and then I feed my children and play with them and take care of my husband and do other things and take a shower, is any of that not work?
Yeah.
Am I just sitting on my couch all day eating potato chips?
Yeah.
What's work at this point?
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people know.
Yeah.
I think this generation has been so indoctrinated that you can't.
Enslaved.
And what is a real man? That's one of the next podcasts that we need to make. What is a biblical man, and what does he look like?
Yeah.
And how do you provide for your family? Because I'm sorry, most men are not providing for their families. They go escape at a job that they hate all day, and then they come home. They don't even have a marriage. They don't have a
They
relationship with
probably
their
talk bad
children.
about their family at their job most days.
Yep, they're not. They're not leading their family in the ways of the word. You know, I mean, there's obviously times where that's, you know, their families opposing them and different things like that. We've seen that 1,000 times from people, and it's super sad. But there are not enough biblical men willing to lay down their lives, and that's what makes me so sad more than anything else, is seeing my husband, like the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. I haven't met one man that even compares to him, and I'm not just biased because he's my husband. Like, truly, like watching people's fruits and what they do and what they stand for and how much Alex provides for his family, for someone to say that he doesn't provide for his family because he's not working his old job, blows my mind. He provides for his family so much, to the point where he is just exhausted at the end of every single day. The only day he's ever actually resting is Sabbath.
Yeah.
We are literally working from the second that we get up to the second that we go to sleep.
The good thing about that is it on average it takes me anywhere from a half to 3 seconds to fall asleep every night.
the second his head hits the pillow,
Yeah.
he is out.
It's a benefit.
After we pray, of course.
Yeah.
I got some other verses I want to read.
Yeah.
Ephesians 4:29. This one has really benefited me in my walk and helped me to remain gracious in what I think and say. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Back to when I said that we've just decided to remain silent, one of the main verses that was just ringing in our heads over and over and over again, and I encourage you that if you are slandered and you feel deep pain and you feel like this push to defend yourself and to go and just say, well, that's not the truth, and this and this and this and this.
The Sirach.
Sirach, it basically says the same thing too. Exodus 14:14. Yahuwah shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Means be silent, be still, let him fight your battle, because if you think about it and you actually accept it for what Scripture says it is, it's not your battle. It's a battle of the spirits. It's the enemy opposing Yahuwah. It's the enemy trying to stop us from all the good work that we're doing. It's all of that, which brings me into the next verse.
Look at the verse from Sirach.
Okay.
It says, it's Sirach 4:28. It says, strive for the truth unto death, and Yahuwah shall fight for you. So it doesn't say strive for the truth unto death and fight as hard as you can for yourself, to defend yourself, to, clear your name.
Strive for the truth
unto death, and Yahuwah will fight for you.
And when you know that you are blameless and innocent, you can rest in shalom. Because, your character is what matters, not your reputation.
Yeah. 2 more good ones out of Sirach before we move on. Sirach 8:3, it says, strive not with a man that is full of tongue, and heap not wood upon his fire. Which is what, if you try and defend yourself, more often than not, those words are going to be used against you, and you're just heaping wood upon the fire. You're giving them fuel for the argument.
Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Yeah. On Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook.
And then Sirach 11:9 says, "Strive not in a matter that concerns you not, and sit not in judgment with transgressors." So if you don't know, if it's not of a concern to you, don't strive in that matter, which would mean like to fight for one side. If it doesn't concern you, seek it out maybe.
Yeah, and I don't have the, you might know it. I don't remember exactly which one it is. I don't have it written down. That verse that says it's foolish to answer a matter before you hear it out. And then the other verse I was going to share is Matthew 5:11. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. If you're living for Yahusha, you can expect it, you know? Servant is not above his master, and our master was slandered unto death. He was persecuted, and what did he do when they said, defend yourself? What do you have to say?
Yeah.
Speak up. The most innocent man in the world didn't say a single word. And I can guarantee that he was praising Yahuwah in his heart because he knew that he was righteous and upholding the Torah when he was doing it. But all those people said, put him to death. Let's have this murderer instead.
Yeah. The verse you were talking about in Proverbs, it says, he that answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame unto him.
1 Peter 3:13 through 17. Now who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled, but in your hearts honor Yahusha, the Master, as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for this hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Yahusha may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be at Yahuwah's will, than for doing evil. Literally says, it's who can be against you if you're doing good? Who can truly be against you? Yeah. They can be against you for now, but when you're standing before Yahuwah and you're being crowned, who is going to be there? It's going to be you and Yahuwah, and you're going to be hearing, well done, good and faithful servant. And that's what we're living for. Yeah. That's what we're striving for every day. And it says, if you suffer for righteousness' sake, you're blessed. Don't have any fear. Don't be troubled. Strive after Yahusha. And when it says always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, another version will say the faith that you have.
Yeah, well, the hope that is in you. You're not supposed to, like, people will use that, like you're saying, to say you have to defend yourself here. You cannot remain silent. That's the scriptures say defend yourself. It says for the hope that you have, and the hope that we have is the inheritance of eternal life. Not to defend yourself against slanderous, people that will just, like it says, don't heap wood onto that fire.
And just like other verses in Peter, it says that in different ways. It just says that you should always have an answer for anyone that asks you, why do you have faith? Why are you walking your walk? That's what it's talking about there. And it says, with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, when people stand up against you and say horrible things, they're going to be put to shame because your behavior is so good. Wow, we came against them with arrows and darts, fiery darts of the enemy, and they stayed silent. That's a common thing, like in school, like when you're bullied, like if you don't have anything to say to the bully, it pisses them off and they'll leave you alone a lot of times.
Well, that's on the movie, what movie? The Pilgrim's Progress, when they're going through Vanity Fair, the city, and they get attacked and they get hit and stuff, and that was like the bad people's number one complaint is like they were silent. It's like, and what did they do and retaliate? What did they do to retaliate when they all of a sudden it's like nothing? They just sat there silently, took every blow, and they smiled at their attackers. And it's like they're like, oh my gosh, it's evil, because for them that's the opposite of what you should do, but that's exactly what you should do.
We've had people say the same thing about us.
Yeah.
And they're just silent and they won't answer any of the allegations. Because I don't serve you, do I?
Yeah.
I serve Yahuwah. Am I living to please you? Do I need to tell you everything
Yeah.
about my life? You know, that's why it's so dangerous. That's why slander is so dangerous, and that we think that we can tear down other people. Something that you think, you know, we're all different parts of the body. We all have different gifts. We all have different callings. It's a very dangerous place. I've learned over 10 years almost of being in Torah to say that another person is not doing the will of Yahuwah because it doesn't look like what I'm doing for Yahuwah.
Yeah. So you didn't have Proverbs 25 written down, and I found some good stuff in there.
I also had Proverbs 10:18. I think this might be the last one of the last ones. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and whoever utters slander is a fool.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to read Proverbs 25 here?
Yeah.
So we'll start in verse 7. No, wait. We'll start in verse 8. Proverbs, you don't really have to get a lot of context because it's the same way with the Sirach. It's like 2 verses out of a chapter, and then you like turn this way and then turn
it's little
that way.
quotes of wisdom.
Yeah. So this one is Proverbs 25:8 is where it starts. It says, "Go not forth hastily to strive, lest you know not what to do in the end thereof, when your neighbor has put you to shame." Saying, don't go out hastily to strive against him when your neighbor put you to shame, because you don't know what's going to happen in the end of that. And then it goes on to say in verse 9, debate your cause with your neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another, lest he that hears it put you to shame, and your infamy turn not away. A word filthily spoken is like apples of gold in pitchers of silver. As an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover among an obedient ear.
That's another thing. That post that was made about us, the big one. She said that I didn't answer her questions about our ministry work because she was inquiring about what we do and everything, and she actually
mainly what she wanted to see was like a detailed everyday breakdown of like we spent 25 minutes talking to this person, we handed out 2 Bibles, and then like, but in addition to like we spent 25 minutes talking about this person, just a brief description of the conversation and what we talked about and stuff like that. And like I was just thinking about that. There's stuff like with all of the stuff that we do, like maintaining our bus and like back even when we had a vehicle that we maintained all the time, we've been in such a state of rush, and we're only starting to learn how to slow down and not work so hard to the point that like we can fit what we like. We can take a shower when we need to, like just slow your day down. But like I've lost like records of things like that are important, like parts that I've put onto vehicles and receipts that I should be keeping, and or like information that I should be logging that's really important in our own lives. And I've lost that stuff because I literally just don't have the time to sit down and organize it all. And so like we hardly had the time a lot of times to stop and talk to the people that we talked to. That our children were upset, they needed to be fed, we needed to get where we were going so we could do our nighttime routine, clean up our bus.
For those that don't know, we have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and now I'm pregnant.
Yeah. And so
very
like,
young children that have many needs.
Yeah, so we have so much like family stuff going on that most of the time we stop to talk to homeless people and to hand out Bibles and food and stuff.
And it's already a huge inconvenience in our day.
Yeah, when we need to like go put the children to sleep and they're upset and like this person is worth it to stop and talk to them. And so like we were stretching ourselves so thin by taking every single opportunity that we had to talk to these people. We had no time to log any of this stuff. They're like still to this day, and we've been stationed now for like almost 4 months, and we're trying to like get adjusted and everything and take care of this property here. Just yesterday, we talked to that guy at the gas station. That feels like it was a week ago.
I know.
Like our days are so blended and blurred where like something will happen, and it's even the opposite where something happened 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, that was just yesterday. And Lou's like, no, that was 3 weeks ago. And so like our brains are so scattered because we work so much and we're putting so much thought and attention to so many things that it just wasn't possible for us to write down and in detail our ministry work the way that this person had asked us to do it.
So she said that we wouldn't tell them anything about our ministry work or anything, even though they had donated I think it was $50 the like a couple weeks before that or something. I don't remember anymore. It was a while ago. Like that happened a long time ago already. And her post said that I didn't answer. And what people don't see is that we had full conversations. I'm pretty sure they're deleted on my phone now because I don't even really like to keep holding on to that stuff. I'm not gonna go before a jury and be, yo, here's screenshots of everything that was said. It's Yahuwah sees it, and that's all I need. But like, there's things that are just either straight lies or, people don't see that I have so many conversations in private with people. And it's like, yes, I'm answering all their questions. I'm going through, I told her how much ministry work we do. I said I couldn't do a daily log and log every single thing. There's a reason we don't do that even on social media for everyone. And nobody else asked for that or cares.
Yeah. Well,
So it was very
also,
odd that was even a requirement.
Yeah. It's
It's like
also
a
not good
control
for
issue.
our own safety. We would normally, Lily would wait to post signs until we had moved on a little bit because there's a lot of people that are very against the truth. And there's a lot of wicked people in the world. And we've gotten emails from those wicked people that have seen our signs, and we handwrite our email. We have a specific email just for the signs on the back of them. And we've gotten those emails from those wicked people. And so we don't really like to detail where we are exactly until we've moved on.
Yeah, that wasn't really a big factor for that, but that does matter.
Yeah.
But for her to say that I didn't answer any of her questions when I talked to her many times, long paragraphs answering all her questions. And, if someone's slandering someone, you never know what's said in private.
Yeah.
Don't just
what's true or what's false.
Yeah, especially if it's not even a matter that concerns you, don't be concerned with it. There's so many times where I'm like, I see slander or exposing other people, and I'm like, this isn't even fruitful. All you're doing is causing division.
Yeah.
There's very, very rare situations where that needs to happen. And usually the people slandering are just in the wrong as well. And it's it's such a fine line. We need to literally seek Yahuwah on everything, because at this point, people are so puffed up in pride that they run with it.
Yeah. Well, and something that I took a different view from a while back when we were doing a little bit of looking into Amish communities was that the saying, what's the worldly saying? It's you do you. That worldly saying, even if let's say someone, not somebody running a ministry or something taking donations, if someone is breaking Shabbat and working on Shabbat, there's millions of billions of people that do that every day. And what would be the benefit of tearing someone down in public on a public platform and tearing them down? It's if they're being wicked, warn them like you're supposed to, and if they don't hear you, let it be. This community, or from my view, there's people in the Amish communities, and they have their own sects, and they think that this other sect of the Amish community is they're the worst people in the world because they use power, and then this people will use it for their business. And it's but these communities, you can get so narrow-minded to where this is the one way. And then you look at there's a different Amish community that disagrees with them entirely, and they live an entirely different lifestyle that the other Amish community say these people are heathens, And so it's easy to get so narrow focused and to completely forget there's a whole nother world out there of people. The entirety of the world just about is wicked and transgressing, And so if you think that exposing one person out of that's just being, disobedient. If you warn them and they don't listen, maybe warn others if they're still, a part of that, person's friend group and stuff like that. But
you know what that's called? It's called a superiority complex.
Is it? I don't know what that is.
Thinking you're superior when other people do things wrong.
Yeah.
And it puffs you up, when you tear other people down, it's oh yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tear this person down. They're not as good as me. Who did we see that? Who did that in the scriptures that Yahusha rebuked? Pharisees. The people opposite than the tax collector. The tax collector beat his chest and wept.
Yeah.
So this man is more righteous than you because of his humble heart and meekness.
The Pharisees were blowing the shofar in public every time they prayed.
Wearing long
zitzites. Come look at, we're about to hand out some stuff here. Everybody come see.
What we say all the time is that in the Torah community and among believers, Christians, mostly the Torah community, the standard for fellowship.
Yeah.
You should talk
Yeah,
about
and so
that quick.
that ties into this like very tight knit. What we've seen in like our time of like, especially in the last couple of years, for the most part, the beginning of our walk was completely alone, and even like
For like 6 years.
only up until the very end of our time before we moved into the bus, maybe the last like 6 months, did we have any kind of fellowship at all. For that most part, we were on our own. We talked to people online and stuff, but not anything in person. But from like even from those experiences online, but now even more so in person, the standard for fellowshipping with people is zero. Like
no
for the most
disagreements.
part, most people in the Torah observing community, if you disagree on anything, and it can be the smallest of things, they will like excommunicate you, and like we can't fellowship together because you don't see this exactly the same as I do.
Not any better than the Amish shunning people.
But I mean, at one point that was my thought process, and that's how I acted. It's like if I'm talking to somebody and getting to know them, and it's like, oh, this person is in agreement with me on this, like, well, might as well not even talk to them because we don't agree. But like, it's taken me time to grow and learn that in the last like 4 years, especially. We've really grown in that area, but it's like the standard for fellowshipping with people is zero discrepancies.
That's why there's no unity as well.
Yeah, and that brings us perfectly to this other scripture that we had written down here, which I'm pretty sure is Gad, Testament of Gad, chapter 5.
If you want to read that, it is on our website, setapartservants.com/downloads. You can download the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, and if you want to learn about how to love others, love your neighbor as yourself, and live in grace and mercy, I think those are some of the best scriptures you could ever read. They have changed our life.
Certainly.
They came into our life at such perfect times, and we've been really revisiting them and studying them while we've been here after all this slander, and it's encouraged us greatly. So if that's something that you're struggling with, please just check them out. They're free. Just download them, PDFs that we even edit. Alex spent hours and hours editing them, making them better, just like grammar wise. And
I took the old text that was like, kind of jumbled, and I really cleaned it up. I didn't change, any of the words except for I listed some of the words I changed. I just did a restored names version. I changed the word ye to the word you, so it's not like an old language. It's just easier to read, there's no meanings are changed or anything.
And we wrote down what changes there are. We would never change anything else that, to change it from what it's saying. So.
And so I changed it and I restored names. So wherever it said the Lord, we put Yahuwah. And then I went and I took anywhere where it says something about keeping the commandments. I took that entire sentence and I made it bold so that it stands out. And then there's also a lot of messianic prophecies in the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, and like when you read the New Testament in the King James, like a red letter Bible, all the words of Messiah are in red. And so I thought it'd be cool. And what I did in this PDF that you can get for free is I took every messianic prophecy and I put it in red letters as well. So it's easy to see like, oh, this is a messianic prophecy. So it's pretty darn cool, and it's free. And so it's got all of the 12 testaments, all 12 of Joseph's sons, their last dying words. Jacob's sons.
And if you remember, after the podcast is done, we're about to wrap it up soon, just pray for us to be able to have time and discipline to do a lot more of these restorations, and we want to do more audio Bibles. And
we've wanted to do this podcast for probably a month and a half, but we're so tired at the end of every single day that we go through.
Too much to do, and
that we're like, man, I just can't. I can barely form a sentence right now.
Yeah.
So.
Or the babies don't go to sleep on time,
or when they do go to sleep, they're up and cranking for. They're up for a while and then they go back to sleep.
Yeah, I'm surprised our littlest hasn't woken up asking for milk yet. We got our little baby monitor.
We've been blessed.
Yeah.
So this is the Testament of Gad. And like I said, it was all of the 12 sons of Jacob. It was their like last dying words and the wisdom that they had imparted to their children and their children's children from living out their whole life. So this is a Testament of Gad, chapter 5. It says, hatred therefore is evil, for it constantly mates with lying, speaking against the truth, and it makes small things to be great, and causes light to be darkness, and calls the sweet bitter. The teacher teaches slander, and kindles wrath, and stirs up war and violence, and all covetousness. It fills the heart with evils and devilish poison. These things, therefore, I say to you, from experience, my children, that you may drive forth hatred, which is of the devil, and cleave to the love of Yahweh. Righteousness casts out hatred. Humility destroys envy. For he that is humble is ashamed to do what is unjust, being reproved of another, but of his own heart, because Yahweh looks upon his inclination. This is not the right one. But I was good, so I didn't want to stop mid-sentence. Am I even in the right?
I was just going to input that. If you don't know, these are the brothers speaking that sold Joseph into slavery, and a lot of their testaments are talking about that and how much they regret it, and the envy and the hatred and the malice that they had in their heart, and just like how like their stories of repentance and how they overcame it, and just the righteousness that Joseph had. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Sorry, this was the right one. I was just thinking it was the next one that I was going to read.
Oh, okay.
So I'll
I was going to say it was spot on. It's great.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so anyways, this is exactly what we're looking for here. He speaks not against a set-apart man, because the fear of Yahweh overcomes hatred.
Read that again, slower.
He speaks not against a set-apart man, because the fear of Yahweh overcomes hatred.
Yes, fear of Yahweh will keep us from speaking ill of others, because we fear him so much and want every single thing, every word that comes out of our mouth to be guarded and diligent.
So, if we read, to double down on what Lily just said, if we continue on.
I didn't know what I was going to say
For
next.
fearing lest he should offend Yahweh, he will not do wrong to any man, even in thought. These things I learned at last after I had repented concerning Joseph. For true repentance after a righteous sort destroys ignorance, and drives away darkness, and enlightens the eyes, and gives knowledge to the soul, and leads the mind to salvation. And these things which it has not learned from man, it knows through repentance. For Yahweh brought upon me a disease of the liver, and had not the prayers of my father Jacob, my father, succored me, it had hardly failed, but my spirit had departed. For by what things a man transgresses, by the same also is he punished. Therefore my liver was set mercilessly against Joseph, in my liver too I suffered mercilessly, and was judged for 11 months, for so long a time as I had been angry against Joseph.
Awareness, just like it says, we're punished. We're punishing ourselves when we hold on to anger and bitterness. All it does is hurt us. It just destroys your body. I think there's verses, I think it's the liver and the kidneys that anger rests in, and also your bosom and your heart and everything, but especially I think the liver is where anger lies. And
this is a different one, talking about this is a testament of Zebulun chapter 9, talking about division, which is pretty much the only thing that slander and lying about someone, that's like the only fruits of that is some kind of division,
even if it's something that's true.
Yeah, whether we disagree with this ministry on, let's say, what day to keep Sabbath, whether it's lunar Sabbath or whether it's the 7th-day Sabbath. If we set out and we make an exposing video about them, we say don't have anything to do with this ministry, then anybody that was a part of our ministry, which I don't know if there's even anybody that we would say there's a part of our ministry. Maybe there is, I don't know. But anybody that would be in ministry A group that's 7th-day Sabbath, if they want to stay with that group, then there's now a division. There's a fork in the road.
You have to choose sides.
You can't talk to dude over here keeping lunar Shabbat because he's in the wrong.
That's how it is in the Amish. If someone is shunned and you decide that you aren't going to shun that person, you get shunned.
Yeah. Which shunning means excommunicated.
No talking. No even looking at them most of the time.
If they decide they're excommunicated, everyone has to not talk to him. So that's like, it's clear division in the Amish community there.
We've seen a lot of division with the community that we're in for a while, and we're like in the middle ground. We're like, we love all of you.
Yeah.
Like, we disagree with most of you.
Everybody.
Yeah. Like, there's not a single person that we're like, yeah, you believe everything the same as us. And I don't think there ever will be. Like, even Alex and I have disagreements. We're on the same page with 99.9% of stuff because we're married and we have to be. So you gotta hash it out, which is the point. Like, if we could just hash it out as brothers and sisters and be like, it's not, division ain't an option. Let's sit down and talk about this and work it out. Be a heck of a lot different.
Yeah.
But we throw people away like they're nothing.
And
we don't.
Not saying there's not a time to divide, because if people are if there's a group of people that are murdering people, probably divide from that group of people.
Yeah.
Let there be a fork in the road there.
There's some situations for sure.
Yeah.
And there's also different things, like there's a difference between being acquaintance, there's a difference between being a friend, and there's a difference between being friends with people that you wouldn't necessarily trust your children.
Yoke yourself with.
Yeah, yoke yourself with. You need to be careful who you actually yoke yourself with.
Yeah, and that's
and if you're going to be friends with someone, are you still willing to speak truth to them when they're in error?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest like things that anybody that comes into keeping the commandments, one of the first things you'll hear is Messiah hung out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and the sinners. And it's like, but he wasn't like what you would say hanging out with them and like we're best buddies on the weekend
and justifying what they did.
Yeah, or even just
it.
turning a blind eye to it. He was there to talk to them about repenting and being righteous. That's why he was hanging out with them. But so if we're talking about not like a group of murderers, divide from those people, like I said, make a fork in the road there. But if we're talking about people that are striving for righteousness and striving to keep the commandments and have a sincere heart to do that, this verse or this chapter in the Testament of Zebulun, it's chapter 9, it says, observe therefore the waters, and know when they flow together, they sweep along stones, trees, earth, and other things. But if they are divided into many streams, the earth swallows them up, and they vanish away. So shall you also be if you be divided. And he's talking to like his children, like what you call Israel. So be not divided. Be not therefore divided into two heads, for everything which Yahuwah has made has but one head, and two shoulders, 2 hands, 2 feet, and all the remaining members. For I have learned in the writing of my fathers that you shall be divided in Israel, and shall follow 2 kings, and shall work every abomination, and your enemies shall lead you captive. And you shall be evil entreated among the nations, with many infirmities and tribulations. And after these things you shall remember Yahuwah and repent, and he shall cause you to return, for he is merciful and compassionate, and he sets not down to account evil to the sons of men, because they are flesh, and the spirits of deceit deceive them in their deeds. And after these things there shall arise unto you Yahuwah himself, the light of righteousness, and healing and compassion shall be in his wings, and he shall redeem all the captivity of the sons of men from Beliar, which is just another name for the adversary. And every spirit of deceit shall be trodden down, and he shall bring back all the nations into zeal for him. And you shall return into your land, and you shall see him in Jerusalem for his name's sake. And again, through the wickedness of your works, you shall provoke him to anger, and you shall be cast away by him until the time of consummation. And you see that exact prophecy playing out where they followed 2 kings. And I can't remember. I was going to talk about something about Jeroboam. That when we were talking about people just blindly believing what other people say, you see that happen time and time again. Like you see Aaron with the golden calf, and they're just like, yeah, let's do it. And then, but you see Jeroboam, which is one of the kings of Israel later on when they had 2 kings, he said the same thing. He's like, these golden calves are your gods, and they just believed him for it. It's like, you don't go and like, well, are they really? And like test it out. Or maybe they did and they were just wanted to be wicked, but it's like, not testing out both sides of it, and like and thinking about things before you just, like Lily said on that post, like, oh, thank you. Somebody commented, oh, thank you for warning us. It's like you didn't seek it out. You didn't do it either. Just like, this is the golden cap. Oh, thank you. Here's the gold, like just take a second before you say anything or do anything and just make sure that you know what you're doing.
The last thing that I got is just the ending prayer. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
I just wanted to, since we're here, let me just get to it here.
Since you're here.
Since we're here. So yeah, since we have you here. I don't know. I think it's Asher, but I don't know why something's moved around here or something. There it is. Okay. Oh, is it Issachar? It's Issachar. I'm almost there. Okay, Testament Issachar.
For this intermission, I'll sing the song of Moses.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So this actually ties into what we've been talking about this whole time. I was just going to read this because it's one of my favorite parts of the Testaments, but it ties right in. So this is a Testament of Issachar. We'll read chapter 3. I wanted to read chapter 4, which we will read, but chapter 3 talks exactly about what we've been talking about this whole time. Chapter 3, so there's a Testament of Issachar, chapter 3. When, therefore, I grew up, my children, I walked in uprightness of heart, and I became a husbandman for my father and my brethren. If anybody doesn't know, that means a farmer. And I brought in fruits from the field according to their season, and my father blessed me, for he saw that I walked in rectitude before him, and I was not a busybody in my doings, nor envious and malicious against my neighbor. I never slandered anyone, nor did I censure the life of any man, walking as I did in singleness of eye. Therefore I was 35 years old when I took a wife, for my labor wore away my strength, and I never thought upon pleasure with women. But owing to my toil, sleep overcame me, and my father always rejoiced in my rectitude, because I offered through the priest to Yahweh all firstfruits. Then to my father also, and Yahweh increased 10,000-fold his benefits in my hands, as also Jacob my father knew that Yahweh aided in my singleness. For on all the poor and oppressed I bestowed the good things of the earth in singleness of my heart. And this is the one I wanted to read here. And now hearken to me, my children, and walk in singleness of your heart, for I have seen in it all that is well pleasing to Yahweh. The single-minded man covets not gold. He overreaches not his neighbor. He longs not after manifold dainties. He delights not in varied apparel. He does not desire to live a long life, but only waits for the will of Yahweh. And the spirits of deceit have no power against him. For he looks not on the beauty of women, lest he should pollute his mind with corruption. There is no envy in his thoughts. No malicious person makes his soul to pine away, nor worry with insatiable desire of his mind. For he walks in singleness of soul, and bestows all things in uprightness of heart, shunning eyes made evil through the error of the world, lest he should see the perversion of any of the commandments of Yahweh.
It's a wealth of wisdom.
Okay, no, we just got to keep going here. It says, "Keep therefore, my children, the Torah of Yahweh, and get singleness, and walk in guilelessness, not playing the busybody with the business of your neighbor, but love Yahweh and your neighbor. Have compassion on the poor and the weak. Bow down your back unto husbandry, and toil and labors in all manner of husbandry, offering gifts to Yahweh with thanksgiving." And I'll stop there because then it just goes into offering gifts and stuff.
We'll let you read it yourself.
Yeah, that's just a little taste of it. But yeah, like Lily said, you can get that for free on our website if you want. It's a really cool little PDF that you can download and use offline.
We also got our testimony on there. And,
yeah, there's also a lot of other books on there that you can get that I've, cleaned up and restored names.
Donation links if you want to support anything that we're doing.
Yeah.
I gotta build an entire new bus.
Yeah, I thought about before we did this podcast, I was like, it would be interesting, it was just a random thought I had, to count how many projects we have going on right now.
Too many to count.
It's probably over 20, like different, and they're big projects that we've got going on,
Yeah, just like
Crazy.
the daily ones that we're working on, and more coming. Like we have them broken up into seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely do need help, and I think I'll be making a post about that soon, Yahuwah willing. But we got like nothing. We're barely able to keep up with our food right now. So if this has blessed you in any way, just consider that.
Yeah.
If it's Yahuwah's will. If not, he provides in whatever way he desires. That's why we have shalom and contentment in whatever season we're in. But should we go into the ending prayer with the psalm?
Yeah, well, I think we've pretty much covered it all.
Yeah.
We just wanted to talk about how dangerous it is, and maybe just think about something before you comment something. Or if you are upset with something somebody did, and it's something that something that someone has done has offended you, talk to them about it.
Yeah, really.
And just try and clear the air, because 9 out of 10 times it's probably just a miscommunication, or they said something. Like, I almost won't talk to people anymore over text, because everything can get so easily twisted. You can't tell. It's always better to, maybe like if something that someone did offended you, maybe like if you can video call them so that you can see their facial expressions, their tone of voice, everything. It's just like being there with them pretty much.
We've lost so much desensitization over social media.
Yeah.
And I don't even really talk to anyone on Messenger or text much. If I have someone that I'm really keeping up with, I try to do Marco Polo. It's a really good app that you can download, and you can just send video messages back and forth. Like, you don't have to FaceTime them where you both have to be there live. It's like you take a video when you have time and send it to them, and then they respond when they have time and send one back.
It's great.
It really has changed our fellowship. And I only talk to like 3 people, but I can't even keep up with them because we're so busy. But
so just if like the scripture says, if someone offends you, go and make it right with your brother. So that's what our encouragement is. If somebody did something to offend you, don't let it sit there and you're upset with them and let it fester, because before you know it, from what we've seen, you'll be believing a whole different reality about that person.
Yeah.
And so just go make things right with people that have maybe offended you in any way, or even just talk to them, because a lot of times they might not even know that you're upset about something.
Like the majority of people that have tried to expose us, it comes out of nowhere, and it's like, I thought we were in good standing. What happened?
Yeah. Or if you're going to expose somebody, make sure you spend a good amount of time talking to that person, trying to understand where they're coming from, why they did the things they do, why they think the way they do. And talk to them for a good while and get to understand their point of view, because it might just turn out that you're the one in the wrong.
Yeah. And pray for them and with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Love fulfills the Torah.
Become one river. Because then if we all can join together amongst our disagreements, like it says, it's a fearful force. The trees get eroded by the river. The rocks do. Everything does. If we could all come together, we would be unstoppable.
Hallelujah.
And the enemy knows that.
All right. Psalm 141:3. Set a guard, O Yahuwah, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Yahuwah Most High, we just pray that everyone listening to this podcast is blessed in some way by the things that we've shared, our own testimony, encouragement, scriptures. Overall, we just want you to be glorified, Yahuwah. We pray that you would set a guard over our lips, that we would glorify you with every single thing that we say, think, and do, that you would soften our hearts and not have any bitterness or hatred or malice or envy or any of the things of the adversary in us. They would purify and cleanse our hearts and help us to just live rightly. We just want to please you with our lives. We want to be righteous in all things. And when we do have disagreements, help us to be graceful and merciful and forgiving as you have forgiven us. Help us to always reflect the fruits of the Spirit and the love of our Messiah. Help us walk as he walked. Help us follow in his footsteps. And when we don't know which way to go, to just look to your word and to be patient and slow to speak, slow to anger, and just wise in everything that we do, knowing that we will be judged for every careless word that we speak. Pray that you would just bless us in our lives. Have mercy on us, because we're in such a difficult generation where we're all scattered far and wide. We're all just trying to find out what's truth and what's not. Help us to just be gracious. So many of us are struggling and going through hard times, and help us to just not dwell on the negative, but focus on the positive. Help us to commend other people when they're doing righteous things for the kingdom against all odds, against so many adversaries and people against them. Help us to lift each other up and encourage each other and really bear each other's burdens. Help us to remember where we came from, how wicked we all were at one point, and that we're still not perfect and we're still being perfected every day. Even though we're complete and whole, we still have so much room for improvement. Help us to just remember that and to just be very kind. We just thank you, Father, for giving us the time finally to make this podcast and for bringing so many things to our remembrance. And we just pray that you bless everyone that hears this and that we can all go forward in more love and see more unity in the Torah community and among Christians, among believers that are confessing Yahusha and striving to live as he wants us to live. Please just continue to call us to repentance and bring us together, as your word says that you'll do in the last days. Because we are in the end times, seeing prophecies being fulfilled. We just pray that you would help us to endure until the end. Because this life is very long suffering, even with each other and even with ourselves. We have to suffer so much, and we know that above all, you are long suffering with us and patient and very forgiving. We thank you, Father, for all that you do. We love you. In Yahusha's name, hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Well, at the end of this podcast, it is now 12:14 p.m.
I am.
So we're going to go to sleep, and we will catch you in the next one.
Shalom.
Shalom.